but we kept that kind of camaraderie open, inviting everybody together and all that stuff. So
yeah,
it stuck through the career field, even though the ALOs changed. A lot of exercises down to Donnelly D, Arctic exercises, a lot of JRTC rotations going down there. When I got I was kind of spoiled in my, now I'm airborne by doing mostly elevators with it HH60. I remember the PJs were doing a jump one time. Kibby was out there. There's a few guys, and they went up to 14,000 to do a free fall. And we watched one guy in a streamer. We're watching them, and his chute's not open, his chute's not open, and the chute's not open, and the chute's not open. And it's like, what the fuck's going to happen? What are you going to do? And I want to say it was like the last, suddenly a chute opened.
Jeez.
And that was my first kind of, holy shit, shit does happen up there.
Yeah.
Only two things fall from the sky: bird shit and plane shit. And airborne is plane shit.
Right.
And everybody, once you hit the ground, you're a grunt anyway. So
right.
But Troy also and Jason Minders, Mike Lakin, Tony Moss, they set up a Arctic Circle jump. They got the Army to do up a CH-47, and we went north of the Arctic Circle, and
cool.
We did a jump up there as the Arctic Brigade. And again, it was just based on building that reputation with the relationship with the Army and what we did, the TACP did. And the officers bought off on it, because when the Army wanted to do it, we could do it.
Sure.
We were there when I think it was Colonel Brooke, who I also knew from Lyle Brooke, and Sergeant Major Pagan. They built the Mount site, the little urban village that you could only fly into outside of Fort Greely, one of the impact areas.
That's Simpsonville?
Simpsonville, yep.
Yeah.
Up there when that, we had a bunch of SEALs that would come in and do different types of training out there that we got involved with.
Nice.
It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool times. One significant time, there was a Balo that I was working with. We did a big, it was like the first time in all the cast stuff out at Simpsonville. They flew in artillery. They flew in a bunch of infantry, mortars. Also, it was a huge live fire exercise. We had high angle fire, low angle fire artillery, and we had A-10s flying through the middle of it.
Nice.
And I remember one of the Balos, Captain Stone, he was out there with me. He was an A-10 guy. And, he'd go back. And we did numerous train ups, day, nights. And this was a long exercise. And the end result to do that live fire exercise, that three-dimensional box that people only talked about and saw it in diagrams. And part of that, it was cool. It was really fucking cool. The intensity of everybody was like, is this really going to work?
Right.
Is the big sky little bullet thing real?
I mean, if you do it right, it works like a charm. I mean, if everybody adheres to all the airspace deconfliction measures, then it should work,
But it was still a testament of that the trust in the relationship of, what you're doing, what we need to control, what we can do. Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
Crawl, walk, run.
Sure.
And it worked really well. And then, so coming back from that, the Balo I was with, Captain Stone, we were driving in a Hummer to come back. And, it was a significant experience for both of us career-wise. And we bonded quite well. And he was telling me about this lady that he's been dating and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, man, I feel so good. I think I'm going to propose. I'm going to propose to her tonight, Shafe. I'm going to, this is the one, man. This is the one. And then a few weeks later, they were snowmobiling on the backside of Eielson. And he was a New Englander, I think, avid snowmobiler. And I got a story that he went blitzing by the group. There's a group of bunch of the squadron wives and and pilots going on a ride, and he went blitzing by, and they came up, and there he is, impacted with one of the support beams on the pipeline there behind Allison, and just died instantly.
Oh my God,
Um,
that's
uh,
horrible.
just a quick fast forward, the job I'm in now, there was a guy that came in to do some boat service, and I noticed his truck outside had a silhouette of an A-10. I went inside, talked to him. Just a quick kind of jump forward. This guy was an A-10 pilot that married the fiance of this Balo.
No kidding.
Weird shit, dude.
Wow.
Yeah.
I hear so many crazy stories like that on here. Guys,
Yeah.
just so coincidental in such a small world.
I got a few more on one of our founding fathers when I got to Canada. So that was drum, and then drum. One of the things that Benny Wainwright. One of the things that I have to say, I was deployed real world, but it's kind of embarrassing to say. But I was at the BKOC in Vicenza, Italy, overseeing the Bosnia flights.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
it
don't
is
know
what
how.
it is. Somebody had to do it. I mean, it wasn't
I don't
like
know how I was chosen for that. A one deep. It was just me. There was no other TACPs there other than the Vicenza guys, which my good friend Matt Foote happened to be stationed there, so I hung out with him.
Sure.
Only daytime casts, only good weather casts, because it was just the peacekeeping, the after the main battle.
Right.
No weekend casts. I had my own POV. I couldn't travel in uniform, and I had an
Getting better and better.
apartment.
Oh my
I
God.
had an apartment complex for 3
Jeez.
months, 4 months. Call sign Mad Dog.
That's awesome.
The lowest ranking officer was a lieutenant colonel, and he was the guy that made the coffee. It was an incredible experience, though.
I'll
The
bet.
stuff that goes on at that level, I absorbed everything I possibly could there.
Yeah.
And being what I hope is a great TACP and legacy, because call sign Mad Dog, I went and there was this big pet store, and I found this huge dog bowl, stainless steel dog bowl, and that was the Mad Dog inbox. And I don't know who came after me. I know before I got there, it was a 2 deep slot, but that was one deployment I did. I did happen to go down to Bosnia. It was the end of February, 1st of March, to do the both months tax free in the war zone. I don't remember the guys I met there because it was so quick, and yeah, but
What year was it? What month and year?
that's the cloudy one.
Yeah.
I don't
I was
know
there
if
in
it was
94 or 95, I think. So I didn't know if there was any overlap, or.
Yeah.
But,
And you were at Domelin too, or you were down in Bosnia?
no, I was in Bosnia.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
Yeah. I only went for, I know it was after Somalia. I want to say it was around, I know I was at Wainwright during the New Year 2000, because we, pulled all the electronics out to make sure the clocks changed over. So I know
Right.
it was prior to that, but I know I was there over the Christmas, just after Christmas, New Year's. Yeah, that's the one that it just kind of, I want to forget it because
Yeah.
it didn't feel like a deployment, but
Sure.
yeah,
It was a TDY.
I was.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
the experience was just phenomenal. It
Oh
was
yeah.
nothing I ever imagined at that level of what we do, what we get into.
What a peek behind the curtain.
Yeah, it was. I learned a lot about that. That helped me later on. So Wainwright was a continuation of lots of casts, a lot of great training, but it was also the first opportunity where the Airborne Battalion was co-located with 2 leg battalions. and the
Okay.
division talk and all that stuff. So we had that sort of cliquish group, airborne stuff like that, but everybody really got along well.
That's good.
Everybody, we each had our different training. Of course, we all had our own battalions that we trained with, because I mean there was so much opportunity for training on both sides, and like I said, bird shit, plane shit. When you hit the ground, you're on your boots. Everybody's in their boots anyways.
Right.
So we did a lot of stuff together. So that was really cool to see. And you got the good, like even when we went into JRTC for exercises out of Wainwright, the airborne guys jumped in, and the infantry guys, they did our stuff. They moved in. So I did have an opportunity to, I think I was a brigade TAC or division TAC guy. It was my only experience other than an airborne school. And again, at 14 years later, to do a mass TAC.
Man.
Oh, that was insane. So, the mass TAC was an experience. We went out low altitude, exercise, I guess. And I remember letting go of my equipment and sudden impact with the ground, and just ringing. My head was ringing. It's like,
oh, really?
Man, I fucking hit hard. I know I hit hard. But it's like, okay, I gotta get my gear. I gotta get my equipment. I gotta set radios. I gotta start doing. Got to make sure everybody else is all right. And as I'm pulling my gear up, that it's you're straining, and but it's getting louder. The ringing's getting louder and louder. And I'm like, oh, I hope I'm okay. This is my first other than airborne school 14 years ago.
Yeah.
But as the miles gear going off, as I pulled the equipment up, and it wasn't the ringing in my head, but so that was my first mass TAC. And then
so wait a minute. I think there was a little disconnect when you went off. So you hit the ground, you heard some ringing, but it was the miles gear, not your not your big bell getting rung. Okay, there we go. Please continue, sir.
Yeah, no worries. and I work for a living, as we used to say. I'm not
right.
So just a quick, I remember the name Dave Carr was Zippy in Korea.
Okay.
And I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he was
I don't believe so.
Extremely smart individual. Another one of those guys that wasn't airborne, but highly motivated, enjoyed the job, did a lot. Zippy, he modified things in the Hummers, the vehicles, just to make little comfort things and whatever. Yeah, I think we put roofs in for stereo systems mounted and track lights and things like that. But Zippy was a pretty significant member of the TACP community for sure. And then another guy in Korea was Rodney Rangel, self-titled our token wetback. He was another guy that was motivated to the job, really enjoyed it. A leg, non-jumper. He died early age, so may he rest in peace, and he watching above. Another guy that was there was Charlie O'Riordan, who was also an instructor at one point. Charlie was an interesting character. Great instructor. He was a guy from Boston. I think he was a Golden Glove boxer in his early years.
Oh, really?
And then I heard some stories of him as a instructor when I was going through. I want to say he was through there, and there was a few. Let's say they were mishaps where people were potentially on the way to getting into some big trouble, and a lot of it was paperwork, because still no computers.
Sure.
And, paperwork would mysteriously get lost to save people's career.
Yeah, those are the good old days when you could take things out of your medical records or take them out of your if you had a unfavorable information file or something.
Yeah. So, but those are some just quick recaps for Plasma by, and then at Benning also, I remember there was a survival course that was put on in Linville, North Carolina, by a name you may have heard, George Splitsdosser. Split.
I don't know. I don't think I've heard of that name.
Oh, he was another one of those hard charging, really, I mean, out in front of a lot of people and getting things going. I want to say he was a jumper, but he wasn't one of those crazy radical wild guys. I think he was out of Shaw, or he might have been at Bragg. But he was just a motivated TACP guy that did a lot of stuff for a lot of people. I think those guys need to be highlighted. And he's on the TACP Facebook page. I've seen his name come up a bunch of times. But anyways, so Mass TAC. Yeah, no shit, there I was. It's because I wasn't airborne for so long, and Bragg did tons of Mass TACs all the time, from what Troy and Tony Moss would say. And it was a low altitude delivery. We had a bunch of aircraft. It was a big jump, I guess, for even JRTC. Lots of aircraft, different levels, doing the flood the skies with planes and parachutes. Hit hard, loud ringing. I thought I rung my bell pretty hard. And I'm quickly trying to pull my gear up to get comms going, and the ringing's getting louder. And next thing I know, it is my miles gear going off. It's not my bell. So funny story there. And, still enjoyed the jump. But then it was all light infantry from then on.
Right.
Once you hit the ground. That was my only Mass TAC. The other thing, too, is I don't know if many guys remember the Combat Crew.
Yeah.
Badge.
I remember that badge. Yeah.
Infamous, and you wore it. And, we were one of maybe 4 career fields in the entire Air Force that earned the Combat Crew badge. So when you walked around with that was significant. So,
yeah.
And then kind of that stuff disappeared. So Wainwright, we're up at Wainwright, and still the training process was always from when I left Benning with the great Sergeant Watterson and them guys there. It just kept, the training opportunities were just incredible with what I was able to get involved with, and other folks as well. But it was always a challenge on attitudes of different NCOICs, whatever level you were at, the seriousness of it. A lot of it was you were scrimping and clawing at the scraps so you could, get to do something. But the opportunities were there. You just had to have the tough-natured character to, fuck it, I'm going to do this. This is what we're going to do.
Right.
And as you progressed, you became, battalion NCOICs, and it was your responsibility to train your guys. And as long as you were doing that, most of the time the NCOICs didn't really care anyways, because, it wasn't about the team. It was just a different impression. I don't want to say they weren't team players. It was just different attitudes,
Yeah.
From being at a Fort Bragg type environment, or Rangers or SOF is what I'm referring to.
Yeah. But I think it's kind of equal because, in those units you're mentioning, those are smaller units. So where if you were in a brigade, or if you supported a division, you had all the, you could picture it as your battalion or company guys, your battalion guys, were kind of like that clique that was in, the Ranger guys or whatever, or an SF ODA team. So I can see how a big squadron it'd be hard to have everybody on the same page. You know what I mean? But I figure in your little group, I'm sure you guys are tight, just like anybody else.
We were tight. It all depends on how the boss led their crew and how long the leash was or wasn't.
Right.
My style of leadership started like I was taught. I'm going to make my guys work hard, and I'm also going to play hard with my guys. We went out to the field often. I thought it would be important to roll out to Owlson Range. Sometimes midweek, so it would just be regular work days, but we would do RONs overnights. And then sometimes I would extend it into the weekends, also including the family, so they would, get that grasp of if we ever had to go. this is the reality. And then always scheduled lots of casts. As long as weather came in, we always had it because the squadrons, the 16s and A-10s are right there at Allison. So it was incredible. It really was. We started building relationships with the aviators. Matter of fact, Troy Eck, Jim Zagorski was another guy that was up there, him and his incredible wife, Amy. They were up there, and me, Jim, and Troy, and I think there's a couple other guys. It's like, we're going to start something new. We're going to start the air power control team, and went out and had hats, APCAT, and because of the attitude and stuff, you had guys that were just trying to do something to make what we wanted to do the best way possible. So we would do air inserts with some of the helicopter crews. I think Jim Zagorski made a connection with the coolest guard guys from going through the PJs down on Eielson. He lived down there with Amy. So, because we could either do housing down there, we could get housing on Wainwright, or we could live off base. And then Jim had us hooked up with a rope master training with the coolest PJs. So there was a few of us that went down to Elmendorf, basically, coolest the base, the guard base, and we took off in an HH-60 and went across to Cook Inlet, and we did basket training, hoist training, rappel training, all sorts of stuff, and then they blessed us as rope masters.
Nice.
What that allowed us to do was go back to Wainwright, because they had an air assault school there open at the division, and they trained all their own, and people from all over came in. Well, this Blackhawks there every year needed certification for rappelling. So when we first got there, we had this little old firehouse as our TACP squadron, and we had an office in the head shed. And then we were gonna set up some 40-foot containers, some sea cans, and we ordered some trusses. We were gonna do like a overhead storage and roof it. And then one of the ALOs there was an old building, condemned, gate locked up, right there along the airfield. It was right next to base ops. And it's like, oh, what if we get the metal off that building and we can use it for roofing? It was all about scrap. It was like whatever, like that deuce and a half going down the Shaw. It was whatever we could do. We didn't really have a budget, so whatever we could scam and build up. Well, the Army agreed that we could have the metal off the building, but we had to take ownership of the building first. And that led to the Air Force's largest self-help project. We got the Golden Hammer Award. It was like some $260,000 because a little paint here, a little touch up there turned into this massive clusterfuck. It was a great building, but when the fire department came over to inspect it, they're like, yeah, this one building helps justify our manning because it's a 2-story wood structure ready to go poof, and you guys just moved into it. It had bays, it had all this stuff. It was something. And then the other thing we had there, we had 6 track vehicles. We had the SUS-Vs, and the Army had a ton of them. They were all over the place. And we had pallets. We had 206 pallets mounted in there. Our radio maintenance guy, one of them, Greg Reddy, and another guy, Milton Greenlee, they came up with all the stuff, fantastic crews, supplies, and everything, support. And we mounted pallets in these SUS-Vs. And the manufacturer, the Swiss company, Urban and Sherry, the representative, they came over and they wanted to do this big test with R6 rigs against a test they were doing with the Army, because the Army was fighting for keeping them maintained because they were just problems, but they were operator specific needs that need to be done. So we had these 6 SUS-Vs, and they did incredible for us, and we went all over the place with them and did a bunch of great things. But the training, and we also got into sling loading them. because not only Simpsonville, but OP-26 and some of those OPs out at Greeley, the only way you could really get out there and enjoy them was to fly out there with a helicopter,
right,
or SUSV into them.
So how long did that take?
A good half a day.
Yeah.
They
don't go very fast.
No. And then we could truck them down, I think, but sling loading, we started doing that. We had our own sling sets, because of air assault, because of relationships, we would just sling the SUSVs, and the CH-47 was bring us down there. And we'd have a really good time doing training out there with them. We had some Brit TACPs that came in. We did a big exercise with them out there. The exercise was delayed to a big wildfire. I think an AGM-65 Maverick started a huge wildfire down at Greeley. I don't remember the year, but the exercise was delayed. And we were working with range control on, because we had a SUSV out there, on keeping an eye, because they had the camera systems on the fire. And they had, I think it was OP-26 and OP-27. They could skew the cameras to look at each other's OP, but they couldn't see them because there was nothing but a wall of flames in there. So they're like,
Jeez.
We don't know what's going. This is a Friday afternoon. We don't know what's going on with the SUSV, but you may want to consider, relocating it.
Right.
So airspace restrictions, 3:00 on a Friday afternoon. We got to figure out how to get this SUSV out of there. This is an expensive rig and the 206 pallet. So again, it's that relationship with the Army and what we would do. We would certify the pilots with rappelling. We would just go over there and we would kick guys out the door, go up, put more in. We'd spend a whole week certifying their helicopter pilots as rappel masters, rope masters.
Nice.
So these relationships through this training that we just clawed our way into, was able to have the phone calls. By then we had cell phones, and got a CH-47 and a crew that flew out there to rescue a SUSV. We got over the SUSV, and me and Airman Gillies, he went with me, and then Greg Reddy, our radio maintenance guy, Greg should have been a TACP. He went on and did a lot of great things, but always energized. We went up there to rescue this SUSV, and so the area was sandy and dusty enough that coming in on a regular insertion was always challenging. And there was a 2-story lookout tower and a wooden structure there on the main OP. But that day, with a CH-47, we couldn't, every time we got low enough to see the ground, the dust would come up and we couldn't see anything and we couldn't lower. So they're like, hey, we're going to have to abandon this. We're not going to be able to do it. Plus, as we're trying to hover to hook up the SUSV, this is after we got out and we just ripped the chain links, the sling links around 4 on each car and set it up to try to get it out. So the loadmaster could look out the center door there and grab the hook and hook it up independently versus people standing underneath it and do it. But the crew chief's leaning on the side of the aircraft, and he's like, we can't stay here any longer because this aircraft's starting to get hot. Well, it's starting to get hot because the fire was so close to us and roaring. The fire was louder than the CH-47.
Wow.
And here we are trying to rescue a SUSV with a 206 pallet. So I convinced the flight lead to just let me and Neil jump out, get low enough. We'll jump, land, PLF, whatever. We really couldn't see the ground. We couldn't. And then Neil got in the driver's compartment. I stood up on top, hanging onto the sling thing, riding it like a stagecoach going wild. And he drove it down the hill into this marshy area where it was no dust because it was a marsh. And then we were able to get back in the helicopter, get up, load up, and then we hooked up and we got the SUSV out of there.
Wow.
So
that is crazy.
And then we went back in and we did a pretty cool exercise with some Brig TACP guys, some Brit. They used to come to Cope Thunder back in the day, and the exercises and do that. And we had some pretty shit hot training there.
So did the fire engulf 2.6 and 2.7, or did it go the other way, or what?
Well, what was weird when we flew in there was like the good creator God was trying to make his own little golf course, because the area out there was just totally blackened except these big green sections. It's like little tee boxes all over the place. And it was wild. And matter of fact, during that time, we had one area where there's a fire that just kept popping up, kind of a couple clicks away from us, but from the OP looking down onto the bombing range. And through the week, it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So we called range control, told them about it. They sent in an OV-10, a scout bird, the Firebird, which was, I want to say it was a Bronco at the time. And the guy came in, he goes, yep, definitely. That's a underground fire. We definitely got to take care of that. So we're going to have a fire bomber come in and we're going to put some chemical on that stuff. So he's like, okay. So we're out there, we're, joke fucking around and having a good time. And so this guy comes back and he says, all right, the tanker's coming in behind me. Here's the path he's going to go. And he flew right over our heads because it was the direction of the fire. And they said right about over your heads is when they're going to start letting the retardant out. And I'm like, hey, okay, when they do that, I'm sure you guys got calls, whatever, but I am going to make a call over our radio just because of what's going on in this event. So anyways, this guy comes over. He's got the bomb bay doors open. I go on the mic and I go, cleared hot. Retardant comes out, puts the fire out. So, and back in those days, you actually logged all your missions, whether they were dry or hot. And in my logbook, I had fire retardant strike.
That's awesome.
Just because we were.
Yeah. Was that the fire that burned down, that almost burned down Delta Junction, or came really close to it?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Oh, I
heard there was a big one down there.
That was massive. Massive. It was the first wildfire that I remember in all my years up there, even after I retired. That was major close. I mean, we had smoke that affected the area, but that was a huge fire.
Yeah,
and I believe it was started by a Maverick. Massive grizzly tracks out there. We would go on hikes and wandering around, and I mean, you put your foot in there, and it would oversize my size 12 boot.
Right.
It's Alaska. You're not on top of the food chain anymore.
No, not at all. And that's what my buddy says a lot. He's like everything out here is trying to kill you. Everything you run into is actively trying to take you out. So be careful.
The little mosquitoes. There's the mosquitoes, man.
Right.
Yeah. Crazy, but
no.
The other thing, the Northern exercise, we had a big exercise as usual down at Donnelly, down at Greeley area one time. And 1 year, I remember, I forget what type of aircraft, but a Navy aircraft actually crashed.
Wow.
It was marginal weather. They were working, doing Navy stuff. It was a CAS mission. And it was one of the mountains there, right there on the Alaska range. And he was down low and tried pulling up. And the report came out later that, he hit just at the peak of the mountain because they could see the impact on the north side, but all the little pieces of the aircraft was on the south side of the mountain.
Jeez.
So that was during the Northern Edge exercise. That was kind of our first, real world during an exercise. We lost an aircraft, type scenario. So still in deep exercise mode. So it was a real serious moment, kind of a pause on everything going on, not an index, just the pause X, and, the seriousness of what just happened, was kind of the first real world we lost a pilot, we lost a guy.
Right.
This is what our job could bring. Not just TACP, but the Air Force too. The Air Force, the Army, everybody.
Right.
So
this is a dangerous career field, a dangerous thing that we're all doing, and that was a sober reminder, I'm sure.
Yeah, that was definitely. So, and I'm sure there was others, but in my 20 years, 21 days, it was, some significant stuff going on there. So, we're what else? And then we were going down to, I want to say it was myself, our commander, who I think was Colonel Wright, Cato, A-10 pilot. Kevin Parsons, he was another name up at Wainwright. That was a pretty hard charger, but not airborne. There's a few other guys. We all went down to Elmendorf. It hadn't been a combined base at the time, to start a planning session for, I think it was a Northern Edge or just this big joint exercise. And we kept doing the leapfrog. Headquarters is up at Wainwright. No, headquarters down at Richardson. No, headquarters up there. But this time, headquarters was at Elmendorf, and that's where we're going to do the training. And it was, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I woke up. We were staying at the Elmendorf building. I started channel surfing. And then next thing I know, and here starts our, now the shit's really hitting the fan. Tower 1 gets flown into.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, what the fuck, Tower 1, the Trade Center?
Right.
Plane gets, what? Accident? So I'm, it's like, it's got my attention. But, so I'm trying to find another channel, and it's just, that's it. It's everything on the news. Yeah. And then the second tower got hit. I immediately grabbed the phone, called the commander. I'm like, sir, you need to wake the fuck up and turn on TV. I think something's changing. And then I started calling the rest of the guys, and shit got real.
Yeah.
Shit got real. For years, I had Kevin Parsons was one. He would send me a message on 9/11. He would say, I remember the day you called me. We got locked down. We got, we weren't sure if we could, because we came down in I think it was a 6-pack blue truck. We weren't sure if we could drive that. A lot of things just changed.
How long did you guys have to stay on Elmendorf before you go back?
From the moment I saw Tower 2 get hit, it's like everything became blurry for me. I only speak in personal issues. But I want to say it was at least 48 hours.
Okay. Yeah, everything was just locked. You
didn't. And rightfully so for what?
Sure. Yeah. Benning was like a parking lot. It was just. You remember that the road coming in the front gate? It was just like bumper to bumper. I was already into work by then, but yeah, it was everything just it was stopped. Nobody did anything. So I can imagine.
It was crazy. The lack of information, the surrealness of what the fuck,
right?
And then what are we going to do? And then I don't know how long it took, but I remember getting called into. We were still in the self-help project, the Golden Hammer, and backing up a little bit. We had one commander, Colonel Kerry Bowers. All respect for Kerry Bowers. He was an incredible commander, but he was specifically tasked to finish this self-help project because it drug on and on and on. And the amount of money that went into it. So we weren't told we can't do training, but our priority was definitely the building.
Yeah.
And I was one of the supervisors who was like, no, I got the 623s. I got to get all my guys trained. I got to do this. I got to do that. We're going down range. If you're telling me I can't go and you want me to take my guys and be carpenters, then tell me.
Yeah.
Write me a letter. Tell me this is what I have to do instead of training my guys. Some guys would happily go over there and just, hell, I'm learning how to be a carpenter. We had one guy that was our Talo. He also, at the same time, was building his own house.
Jeez.
So you can imagine the shit with that was going on, or maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Maybe everything was kept straight and narrow and all that stuff. But it was a real challenging time. And then 9/11 happened, and it's like, boom, we're going. So the big building that we made, the big conference room up there, I don't know if you ever saw the old building before the multi-billion one.
I think I did. I think I was up there at one point.
But we all got called in the conference room. Really nice setup too, nice comfy chairs and all that stuff. It was, we did a lot of family events there. And the message, as I'm sure we all heard, that wasn't directly aligned with the soft guys, said, hey, here's what's going on. We got boots on the ground. We need more TACPs to help support the teams in Afghanistan. There's a long list of prerequisites. First off, who's volunteering? If you're volunteering, stand up. I don't think there were anybody that was. John Sturl was a guy that was stationed. He was a TACP there, a great mentor, role model, but a conscientious objector. He was not about to go to fight, but he did the things we did, the things he taught us, the way he was as a senior NCO. He was one of my role models for sure. So everybody stands up. John sits down. He doesn't want to go. By choice, and then they start reading off the list of prerequisites. And if you did not achieve, you didn't have one of these, sit down. Boop, 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 boop. People keep sitting down.
Yeah,
it was me, Dave Aldrich, and Bobby Pena said he was there at the time too. There's three of us, but again, I don't remember Bobby being there because he just got there. But it was just the three of us. The three of us standing out of, I'd say 20 plus tech people there that had the prerequisites. And this was 16 years into my career.
Jeez.
And shortly after, you're forcing me to jump. Okay, I'll jump. Yeah. So another kind of a snowball effect, except it's building, a quality TACP guy.
Right.
All the experiences. So, I'm going to go. So that's when we got flown down to Bragg to do a screening. And I don't know how many guys, if this kept being a continual thing or this was, they did it a couple times and go. So I went down there with Aldridge and Bobby. And met other guys that, achieved the call to duty. Chaz Bocook, Aaron Gibson, and then Lunk was there. Some other guys were there that I knew. The names escape me, but there was probably 15 guys there that we got the intro. All right, guys, here's what we're going to do. We've learned a bunch of things from guys downrange, and we're going to test to see if you got it. First thing you do, tomorrow morning at, 4:20 a.m., meet at the Pope Gym with a 120-pound rucksack.
Dang.
Not 110, not 115. We're going to weigh every one. You can go over 120 all you want, but they gave us the sandbags, and we brought our rucks. And they say, show up, ready to do, I think it was a 6-miler, with a 120-pound ruck. That was the first, here's what you're going to do, because this is the weights we're carrying downrange.
Gosh darn. That's a heavy ruck.
That's a
heavy-ass ruck, man.
Yeah. So that's the first thing we did.
Yeah.
And I knew people, but I wasn't part of that scene. Again, as I said, that, you ain't airborne, you ain't shit, but I knew a lot of friends. I had a lot of good guys, went to a lot of competitions. I was known, but I wasn't to the level of the boys in the hood sort of thing.
You're right.
So, and I was always good physical. Physical was never a problem for me. So we strapped on that ruck at the halfway marker. I'm making the turn first. I see nobody behind me for a while.
Nice.
I'm coming along. I start seeing people. We get maybe 100, 200 yards to the finish line. And I remember it was Chaz. And I remember it was, I think, Gibbs. And there was one other like badass dude. And as much as you can say you were sprinting,
right,
we were sprinting to the finish line because they were yelling out, "No old motherfucking TACP guy is going to beat us to the finish line."
Right.
And yet again, there we are, 1, 2, 3, 4, crossing the same as finish line. So.
Nice.
And then we got into some pretty intense medical training. IVs every day to start the class. IVs in closets with light sticks.
Right.
IVs, and all sorts of medical training. One of the things I remember in the medical training was they had a room set up with a bunch of chairs, and they had a guy in his underwear with 10 pennies glued in certain parts of his body. And we were blindfolded, and we had to low crawl. And they had a sound system playing with, noise of combat, different types of things, distraction. Sure. And you had to low crawl through these lane of chairs, find the body, and then do the training we were given as far as checking vital areas and everything, and call out if we found a coin. And it could be under his nutsack, whatever, but we had to go head to toe finding the wound site. They would say what the wound site is. We would have to audible what we would do to care for this. And that was a pass or fail.
Yeah.
So it was pretty intense. And then we got
for sure.
And then we got into Suffolk, where I want to say we had 60,000 rounds of 5.56 and 9mm. And we just started doing shooting drills. Anti-ambush. Like we're in a 6-pack truck with our fingers going pew, 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 pew. Now we're with our weapons, nothing loaded, pew, 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 pew. Now we're with blanks. Now we're with live rounds.
Yeah.
And doing a lot of shit. And it was badass. To end everything. And these are badass dudes. I mean, they made the prerequisites. They're hardcore chargers. But I remember the last thing we did is the instructors drew circles in the ground. We were all full kit. We had ammo, and they gave us paint bullets for a 9mm. And we had one magazine loaded. I want to say it was 6 rounds. And hands up, empty magazine in our 9mm, in our drop leg holsters. We were kitted up pretty well.
Yeah.
And we were facing each other, and they said, go. You had to clear your blank ammunition, find the right one, load, and shoot the other guy before you got shot first.
Right.
They did that to see what your reaction was. Some guys were like, just, you're well protected. You're getting shot with paintballs, But it was all to observe what was going on and how people reacted, how people responded to push us downrange to support the effort. It was incredible.
Yeah. What a crash course.
Whoever designed this was a genius, because it was serious shit. And I don't remember his name, but there was one instructor that was just, he walked around like he never left a footprint, but he was a TACP dude, and he was part of that soft community down there with third group. And he had a conversation. He goes, so Shafe, you're pretty old, but you're only a tech sergeant. So you got the rank. You could easily be with a team. but you got the age and the experience that you could be at the higher headquarters or whatever. He goes, and you're a volunteer. He goes, what is it you want to do? And I'm like, I want to support wherever I'm needed. And he's like, all right. And he left. And he recommended a book on killing that I read. That was quite an interesting read. Anyways, we went back to Wainwright. And then Squelch was there too. That's when I met Squelch again. He came from Hawaii. He was
okay.
And then I don't know if it was right after that training or just before, but we got this freaking laundry list of gear that we had to source. We had to buy ourselves. I remember days at the ASOS where I totally ignored everything that went on. And I'm on the phone, either calling, I think it was Chief V or other guys that were, collecting us, guiding us, Ed Schulman. I don't know if you remember Ed.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
What an equipment geek. But it was like, everything, where you go, who do you call to get this? And it's literally, you had to find resource and get it. I remember many times Squelch and I would call each other. It's like, Shave, where the fuck you getting? What do we, because we were kind of on the same time zone, and whatever. But, it was like,
wait. When you say sort, the Air Force was paying for it. You guys just had to find it.
We had to find it, buy it, and then get it shipped. And it wasn't like the supply guy task. It was like, this is your responsibility to do it. And I want to say,
it wasn't coming out of your pocket.
No, not out of our pocket. No.
Okay, good. I was like, that would be crazy.
No,
that's a lot of kit.
Some of the things we did, some of the things we chose to buy when we went to the train. It's like, we're going down there and we're buying, like drop leg holsters, things, CQB belts, rescue rigger belts, knives, the third weapon of defense, some other shit that you just, we got to get this. And Ranger Joe's and Bragg had everything there, and that was one even from years gone by because of the third group there that was there, the Green Berets that were there, the Bragg mentality and everything. You go to Bragg, you went to all these cool specialty stores. Awesome. But it was intense. And then I got orders. We got orders for relaxed grooming standards. I think I was the first enlisted guy to leave Wainwright. I'm not sure when Aldridge went, but I was tasked to go first. I can remember starting to do the processing out of Eielson, relaxed grooming standards. So growing a beard, getting the hair long, which, I was always close to outer regs anyways.
Right.
And getting tuned up by Master Sergeant Air Force guys, like, Sergeant, you're, and I'd be like, relax.
Yeah.
Here's what's going on. And they'd still jump. And then you would just snap and launch back and, show the letter. And then finally the word got around and you could get almost anything done like that.
Yeah. Because they knew you were going out the door.
Because what was happening. So, so I remember, I think we did a contract flight out of Baltimore, Squelch and I got pictures. We were sitting next to each other. And then we landed in Frankfurt. And then we got on a C-17. There was, I remember Chaz was there, Bo Cook. There was like a small group of 7 or 8 of us there. Oh, and then like when I checked out of Fairbanks Airport to fly down there, it's like 6 tough boxes of gear. Because the gear we had could either put us in Arctic-like conditions or summer. You had no idea where you were going to go. The accessories to your weapons, the gear itself, the different types of rucksacks. It was all necessity. 6 huge tough boxes dragging along weapons cases. It's like it was insane.
Yeah.
So anyways, we got a C-17 and we fly, and I think we went to Turkey first, and then we were going into Afghani airspace. And I don't know if somebody else asked or I had asked, but I've always been like different opportunities. I'm going to look for it. So I talked to the 17 crew because we haven't seen many of these. The Bragg guys came up, like I said, I think once, and we had a C-17 up there, but they weren't that popular up in Alaska because they were just coming out. So I asked the crew if by chance when we get over Afghanistan airspace, if we could cycle up into the cockpit and get a view of what the ground looks like from the air, because we're going in there and we're going to need to do blah, blah, blah. Says, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. Come on up.
Smart, yeah.
So they put us, I went up first and they put me in the second row right seat and had maps there and everything. And so he showed me where I was at. So as guys would cycle up there and just get a view of the cockpit, it was cool. I mean, we're up at 30,000 plus feet. We're not really seeing the ground, but it was still a good experience.
Sure.
So all the guys cycled up in there, and then we're getting ready to land in the Bagram. And I'm getting ready to get up to go in the back, and they're like, you can stay there if you want. Okay.
Nice.
And that's when they came over Bagram, high altitude, and then spiraled down. And then last minute, 90-degree turn and landed because there was, RPGs all over the place. There was, it was just concertina wire intense.
Yeah.
And so you're coming straight down on a C-17, man. And you're sitting. It was the greatest roller coaster ride ever. It was,
man, I can't imagine having that kind of a view on that approach. I mean, that's awesome. I mean, I've done it in the back, many times, but I've never seen it out the cockpit windows. That must have been super cool.
It was an opportunity that came up, and I couldn't resist. So
yeah, for sure.
But most of the flight, we were all just laid out on the floor. The best seat in the house is laying at the gate. You get a good sleep there.
What'd that look like when you were going straight down? I mean, obviously you were seeing the ground, I'm sure, but
it's like
awesome.
All you see is the spot directly in front of the aircraft. I mean, they're literally just nosediving straight down, and cool. You just got nothing but the planet in your windshield, and you're like, it was incredible. It was unbelievable what they could do.
Those crews are something.
And
else.
Not just what they could do, but what we had to do because of the environment.
Sure.
Through the years of doctrine, and backing up a bit. So through the years, we had to do the 24-hour talk, man the talks and stuff like that, and even some of the smaller exercises. And we tried doing the crew rest thing, and I always tried to protect my young guys from the abuse of what the Army would do, because there was nothing going on. It was after you've been through so many exercises, you knew what the routine was, but we still had to do it. But what I started doing early on was because the night crew was always the sleeper crew, the people that weren't the high ranks or whatever. But I would just start, forcing the intel guys to go, okay, we keep getting hit. What's the historical pattern of this stuff? Doctrinally, where should they be? And then morning brief, the crew that was the sleeper crew just filling in would have these incredible we're thinking what we should do for our proposed next objective, attacks and stuff like that. And that's when early on, so backing up a little bit, as far as the Army, I started going from more of the worrying about the patches and everything to just making them sweat, the fisters, making sure, if you're prepared, just really managing the Army, coordinating it, extreme project management, and making shit happen in training exercises and what. So this is leading up to the opportunities going in there. So we land at Bagram, and I remember Lunk was there. I remember Chaz was there, and his little skit with Tanks on the Hill, and the sick bastard. And it was a lot of the guys that were already downrange. They're coming through. We're kind of waiting to see what we're going to do. And again, I don't know many of these guys. I'm 36 years old at the time, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know many of them, and they're coming in and they're talking and they're saying about shit that's going on down range and some of the really nasty shit. We got in there right after the SEAL guy got Taku Ridge, I think it was. He got
Tucker Gar, the Roberts Ridge,
where the SEAL fell out of the helicopter and whatnot. And broke his back, and they told us what the intel on what the Taliban did to him to try to get information out of him. So it was real. It was real. It's like, you know, we're you know, this is beyond Olympics and Super Bowl time comparison. So kind of waiting to get aligned with stuff. Guys are quickly coming and going, you know, going out with teams and doing things. And then I got assigned to go with an ODB. I was going to go meet up with a team, get flown out on a helicopter. I think I got moved down to Kandahar first, and then got flown out on a different type of helicopter. Wasn't a Black Hawk. I forget what it was. 53, I think.
Like Mi-17 or something?
No, but it was an interesting. And I got linked up with a ODB and an ODA 360 and 365, I think it was, watching a pass on the Pakistani border. And watching, you know, routes that intel would say that, you know, Osama was using to go back and forth and whatnot. And we sat there for weeks. But even when I got there, it was, you know, I wasn't a former soft TACP guy. It was, you know, I could definitely see where the distance in how we communicated, the small talk, the chit chat, the what you're doing, the gear. It was more professional respect and courtesy versus part of the team feel.
Gotcha.
There's this small creek at this bottom of the steep cliff that they had took some C4 down and blew, made a big tub, basicai a swimming hole for us. And occasionally we would go down there and we would enjoy some cool water. And I remember little tiny fish. You know, you either had your either butt naked or your catch me, fuck me shorts on. And you'd watch these little fish swim up and start nibbling on your balls and in between the cracks there and all this stuff. And it was like, to this day, it's like, I can't believe, you know, nobody really talked about this is what you do when you went down there, but everybody had to do the same thing. It was just an experience. But so we sat there for, I want to say, a week. And again, just small talk. I was, you know, going around each one, getting to know the guys, the team leader, the team sergeants, sharing, you know, kind of experience, trying to get a knowledge. I don't think I saw any airplanes at all. And it was all SATCOM stuff, just one radio, SATCOM, UHF, VHF. And then we got tasked to go to a remote airfield that took us like a week or so to get there. We passed through some built up areas where they had all sorts of confiscated weapons from scattered all over Afghanistan, like AAA pieces, armored, you know, a bunch of stuff that we had confiscated, and I forgot some of the place, but we would make these little pit stops, fuel stops in there, go through all sorts of these, you know, bigger built up villages to get to this remote airstrip that the Air Force had planned to fly us out on. Our up armored Humvees, Mark 19s, 50 cals, shit like that. So we went up to this airstrip, and I want to say it was a day, maybe two, before we were actually flying. And then the day of the flights, it was a plan for 2 aircraft doing 2 130s flying in, picking guys up, going back to Kandahar, coming back for a second flight, and then one coming back for a 5th flight. And we were planning to go back for a big mission that they wanted us to get involved with out of Kandahar for 3rd Battalion, Bush Hogs. So me being Air Force TACP, knowing that we had to take all our big weapons down, we had to pack these up-armored Humvees up to drive into the 130, so the only thing we had was 9 mils and 5.56s. And I said, well, I'm going to get air on station, standby, because if something happens after that first bird comes in, it's going to make a lot of noise. It's going to draw attention. And that's when the shit's probably going to hit the fan. Well, the team leader at the time heard that I had said, I'm not going out to the 5th flight. He went apeshit. He's like, no, you're fucking going back right away, TACP, Playboy. This is what we're going back for, planning mission. And this guy's father was Green Beret. His grandfather was Green Beret. His blood was green. This guy knew his shit. And he's pumping me in the chest. He's like, Air Force, you know as well as I do, any one of us can control air. You don't need to be out here. You're out here because blah, 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 blah. I'm like, that's right, sir. I am out here. And I'm staying out here. This is my job. That's what I'm going to do. And it was, again, another one of those out of character things where, I just stood my ground and said, I'm your TACP. I'm going to be here. And this is what we're going to do. And I'm going to have air on standby. If nothing happens, I'll go out on the 3rd or 4th flight. But right now I'm here to the 5th.
Yeah.
So we agreed that it makes sense. The other guys got involved. The team sergeant got involved. Once they realized that it wasn't going to go fist to cuff, they kind of moved away and we made a compromise. So the plan was to go out on, like I said, either the second iteration or the final bird. I remember that day, once we decided, a couple of us took a hike up this one hill there, and we were looking out, and one of the guys I was with, our junior medic, he talked about it reminded him of a place in upstate New York. And that's when we started getting, we were sharing like family. I got my high school sweetheart, I married, we got 5 kids, blah, 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 and all that stuff. And one of our guys, he was having a baby. Oh, this was afterwards. Anyway, so we were up there, and then it's like, okay, now we're getting ready to go. We're doing this flight out.
Yeah.
Extraction. CCT shows up, I think on a dirt bike, and scrambling around the airfield, checking this, checking that. So I meet up with him at the midway point. All the vehicles are down, ready to load the aircraft. Aircraft was going to come in, turn, 2 vehicles load up, and boogie on out. Okay. I'm at the midway point with the comedy control team, listening on the radios, NVG's on, aircraft comes in, lands, goes down as briefed. Vehicle gets loaded up, 2 vehicles get loaded up, getting ready for takeoff. Again, we're at mid lane, mid airfield. CCT guys are both, and I are both watching the aircraft, and we noticed as it's going by with a spotlight on, the front tire is nearly flat to the ground. And we're like, what the fuck's going on? That front tire should be almost off the ground here. We're midfield. The thing should be close to taking off. And it goes by us, all sorts of dust storm, and then we just hear this loud noise, like what the hell just happened? The aircraft commander is not responding to calls to CCT. I'm just monitoring. Couple minutes go by later, we hear the aircraft. It just did a emergency stop, and came back and said, "Oh, we have some problems with the engines. Blah blah blah. We're good now. We're going to take off." Okay.
Yeah.
It gets ready to roll again. Again, we're midway. We're watching the infrared spotlight come through. There we get, and we see his front tire, like halfway to the ground. What the fuck's going on?
Right.
We hear the aircraft. A little while later, we get a call from the guys at the end of the airfield waiting to load the next aircraft. They call me up. They're like, "What the fuck's going on with this aircraft? It almost hit us. You know, we were standing on top of the vehicles. We had to jump off the vehicles because this thing is barely off the ground."
Holy shit.
So we're watching the airplane, and we see as it IR spotlight the ground, light up underneath it, and we see it rolling like this. And I'd say a mile, less than 2 miles away, boom. It's a huge fireball.
No way.
What the fuck just happened?
Right.
So immediately I jumped to RCC, Rescue Coordination Freak, or I announced that, okay, it looks like a plane crash. The guys take their vehicles as they are with just 9mm 5.56, and they race to kind of see what happened. We didn't know what was going on. We didn't know if something shot down or what. And it's pitch fucking black.
Yeah.
So they get up. I have comms down on the ground at the air T, and then I don't know how long it took, but it wasn't long before I got moved up to the crash site. But the guys got up there. I immediately get told to switch to rescue coordination channel to start rescue, downed aircraft procedures. And I become the air component commander. The guys are up there. Everybody's like, "What's going on? What do you get? What do you got? What intel? Blah, blah, blah," And it's like, we have nothing. So finally, guys get up at a site where they can see the aircraft. And I remember relaying, as we do word for word, we have visual of the aircraft. The aircraft is totally engulfed in flame from nose to tail, wingtip to wingtip. The descriptions later was like, what's the Nicolas Cage movie, the Hell Rider, was like,
oh, yeah.
You could tell it was a 130, but it was nothing but flames.
Jeez.
And they were like, unlikely there's any survivors.
Man.
There's 10 people on board. So at some point, I remember moving up to the crash site. I think it was later on. But suddenly the sky's filling with airplanes. Mm-hmm. We got, I want to say, a gunship checked in and was scanning the area to see if there was any bad guys around, because we didn't know what happened to this aircraft.
Right.
So I got MC-130s up on station with, I describe it as literally, I think the PJ got a hold of the radio and was screaming, "Playboy, release me to jump. If there's any survivors down there, I need to fucking be there. Release me to jump." And this, I've never experienced anything like this. I had no clue the process of what goes on. But here I am, the guy right now that has the authority to say, not cleared hot, but PJ, you're clear to jump. Shit was getting heavier and heavier and heavier. 14 hours I was on the radio. Just, finally stuff died down. We had Ranger Quick Reaction Force come in and to help secure the site, because, again, we didn't know what was going on. And then at some point, I don't remember how long, but I do remember back to that voice recognition thing, you also understand the tone and the atmosphere of who you're talking to.
Right.
The intensity.
Yeah.
And it was the most serious, crisp, clear communication I have ever experienced. When you're relaying things and suddenly there's, you describe the aircraft of nose to tail, wingtip to wingtip, totally engulfed, unlikely to be any survivors. It was like you could hear dust fall. Mm-hmm. Not a pin drop, dust fall. It was intense. Rangers came there, and then suddenly 7 people come walking out of nowhere. 7 survivors.
Wow.
Come walking out of nowhere. In the aircraft are the flight crew. 3 people died. The 2 flight techs that walked the airplane, making sure everything's good to go and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And the junior medic that was chosen to take the seat that I was supposed to be in.
Jeez.
We sifted through the wreckage. I got pictures. I tried to find them, but it's one of those things that I'll get to it and get it to you. But
sure.
I walked around the area taking photos, and there was one picture I took where I was back far enough where I found kind of the last piece of the aircraft furthest away. And there was crew standing next to the aircraft. Everything was burned down, and we were pretty much just waiting for further instructions. And I got a picture. And the wreckage of an MC-130, you could see people above it and over it. It was like almost nothing there. You could see like little rivers of aluminum that melted off from this thing. It was we had to do nothing to destroy this aircraft because there was nothing to do. I'll never forget this. So the guys are sifting through the wreckage trying to find the remains so we could send our brothers home, our family, to home. Right. They found the flight techs. We had to use the winch of one vehicle to pull the other vehicle off, and they found Pete, our junior medic, welded to his seat, melted to his seat, legs cut off just above the knee. He wore his wedding band around a gutted 550 cord around his neck. They found the wedding band, and that's the other thing. I wasn't part of that search. I was on the radio keeping track of aircraft, and they searched for their own. And the Rangers were in there doing the search, and I had my job to do.
Sure.
We had a lot of aircraft flying over, and then when daylight came and we realized that it came, and then the 101st came in and did a larger perimeter, but the Rangers were sorting through. So the one thing that it's goose pimples even just starting to think about it. When we found our junior medic, when they found the junior medic, I think a Ranger found it. There wasn't a word spoken. The Rangers made a lane, and they stood at attention. And they let the SF guys go in and get their teammate. The show of respect, like, dude, goose pimples, hair standing up, was incredible. These are high-level dudes here, as you know. And this is an introduction. This is after just, again, the small talk, getting to know these guys. And then the commander let us, we all had cell phones with I had all Playboys carried cell phones with the crypto chip. We could calls from, commander-in-chief, whatever. And we finally get the word, okay, guys, call your families, let them know you're okay. I know from myself, I never did get in touch with my wife. I left a message on our house phone, and I think I found out that she had no idea who was talking. We just lost full control of our emotions.
Oh.
Up until that point, we were all like rock solid. We had jobs to do, we had stuff. But as soon as the mass said, "Okay, you guys call your family and let them know," I think everybody turned into just a mess, a huge mess of the reality of what just happened. It was intense. And then the story that followed when we got back to Kandahar, that's the other thing. The Air Force was going to say, "Okay, well, we'll send in some aircraft to get you guys out of there."
Yeah.
No.
No thanks.
You had your chance. We're not sure still what happened, but I think we'll drive. We'll be okay to drive. So we drove into Kandahar, and then the stories that came out of what the team leader, an epic hero, did, literally carrying out 6 passengers and saving their lives.
Wow.
It was a story that only he should tell.
Yeah.
It was that their aircraft opened up, and it's unbelievable. Fucking believable how
everybody heard about that story. Everybody, that just spread like crazy through the country, and it was just amazing. I mean, it was like they could feel the fact that guy did that you were there. I mean, everybody on scene did what they were supposed to do, and unfortunately, you lost a couple of those guys. But man, I mean, everybody, like you said, when it was time to act, you acted and you did the right thing.
Yep.
And then you saved the other stuff for later, which is what you do.
I remember the 101st was in country, and they came in as the securing the perimeter. I know there was a TACP guy that took over the radios. I couldn't tell you who he was. I couldn't tell you the name. If he is one that watches these and says, "Dude, that was me," yeah, you're free to give him my contact and say, call, because it's, again, from when I saw plane 1 hit, life was a blur after that for me. So we made it back to Kandahar, and then I got locked down for 30 days.
Really?
For investigation board.
For the investigation, yeah.
And that was my first experience again. And, we all got called in, I think. I know I did specifically, and at this time, it's full face beard, ball cap, sterile uniform, and walk in there, sit down, Sergeant Shaffer reporting as ordered, and there's 6 officers, senior NCOs, that are interrogating you, more or less interviewing you. What happened? What are the procedures? Blah, blah, blah. And I remember one of the first questions was, I think it was the female officer. She's like, "You're Air Force, right?" I'm like, "Yes, ma'am." "Aren't you a little out of regs?" And I laughed, and I'm like, "You don't understand what a TACP is, do you, ma'am?" But that's not what we're here to discuss, are we?
Exactly. Like, why don't you focus on what you guys are doing? Like, why even say that?
But again, even at that stage, Air Force didn't have a clue who we were.
Right.
Is the point I'm making.
Yeah.
And this is early stages, Afghanistan. This is bagroom with a concertina wire.
Right.
This is not what Air Force normally knows. So we go through that, and I remember a senior master sergeant that was on the board. He tracked me down on Kandahar, and he came up to me and he said, what they think happened was they didn't believe the weights of the vehicles, because up armored Humvees, Mark 19, mortars, all the ammunition, everything we were carrying, they didn't think the vehicles could actually weigh what they said. And the teams, while they were prepping from Bagram, being soft, they planned every possible insertion, extraction. They weighed all their vehicles with max payload. They had all these numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But it was part of that miscommunication thing that we heard so much about, and Danger Close, Not a Good Day to Die. All those books started explaining how the TACP career field helped the entire military speak the same language. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
Or understand things. So it was just one of those examples. However, he did say the pilot was a very senior pilot, and if it wasn't for his actions, it wouldn't have been so fortunate.
Oh, okay.
It's combat. So, and I recently, since I said, hey, yeah, we're going to talk, I knew I would have to talk about this. And I looked up the report, and the report doesn't lead any indication to, and we thought it was not that heavy. So what I understand is they maxed out their fuel, because it was bad guy country, no doubt. The planning was the planning, and they were going to quickly come in, get us out, come back, so they didn't have to do any refueling.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Which is why also that aircraft, the wreckage, you couldn't even recognize.
Yeah, it was full of gas.
Yeah,
man.
But 7 people walked out of something that I'm sure they know. So team leader was everybody was pretty messed up that was on that flight. And I remember we were staging to fly, I think, the team back to bury their teammate. And all the guys were working with, I think the team leader was the one going home, team sergeant, with RKIA Pete. And he's like, I ain't getting on a fucking airplane. So he had to be heavily sedated. And then I was the chosen one, because the Air Force, to go onto the air base, the TACP folks, find the specific crew for, I think it was a C-17 that was flying them back, and talk to them and say, look, here's what just happened. This guy's got to go back with you. But it's going to take some time to get him on your airplane.
Yeah.
Peacefully. You need to give him the time.
Yeah.
And it was at that point they were like, we got all day. Yeah, we will do whatever we need. It was serious. I mean, and I was quite impressed with that crew, because I wasn't passing a message. I was like, look, dude, I need to talk to the crew. I ain't talking to you at the counter, this bullshit. Right. Take me to the crew. It was intense.
Plus, it probably hit home for them, because it's a MAF aircraft, so that's like they're essentially they're brothers in arms.
Exactly.
They even though they fly different aircraft, but still
everything that happened so fast, the change in people's attitude and everything was also happening fast, because there wasn't Big Army there. Big Army wasn't in there when I first got there. It was all soft work. It was all soft work or OGA type stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
So while we were locked down at Kandahar, and again we were going back to plan for a mission, we're planning for, I think it was called Operation Full Throttle. Big mission, lots of bad intel, or lots of intel of bad things happening out of this town, Afgoi. Deraou. Passenger airplanes would report, would be flying over just in the transit, and they'd be shooting up at it with AAA and shit. A lot of bad intel shit. We had our SNR teams out. We were watching them for a while, communication, stuff like that. It's like, there's some big hitters in there. We're going after these guys. The intel goes up. So we were doing a big fires package. Of course, TACPs were responsible for anything that impacted with the ground.
Right.
Playboys. So we did all the coordination for fires. We did all the pre-planned requests and all that. And it was just me at the time. It wasn't like I had Romads to help.
Right.
That was another interesting introduction. So we started doing up this planning. And from this experience that I had with prior to coming to SOFT, you asked for the world to allow them to disapprove stuff to just what you needed.
Right.
So it got to a point where the requests that we had all backed up with, legit intel, the operations plan and all that stuff, up the chain would be calling periodically going, okay, I don't quite understand this. Why are you looking for this asset? The Army got so frustrated with trying to answer the question, and I wasn't always 24/7 in the talk in the operations center. They assigned a young guy to physically know where I was at any given moment. And when a call came in, they ran and got Playboy because they weren't answering any questions.
Sure.
No, you need to talk to Playboy. You need to talk to Playboy.
Yeah.
So we get approved for the exercise, and I remember doing the rock drill. We do the sand table. We bring the different elements in, and we had other TACPs flown in there to support this exercise. There was some major stuff planned for this. We had a SEAL team going in. We had, I think, TACP guys aligned with ODA teams going in. It was a big op. And as the fires guy, I was doing the briefing for as a sand table, what you do. And I remember after that briefing, again, I don't remember the guy's name, but a guy came up to me and he goes, "Who the fuck are you?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "I don't know you." I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah.
So I had
what?
the little green memorandum book, right? He goes, "Before this mission, we read up, we got the concept of ops and all this shit, and then, this is the night before we're going. This is the sand table. We're going."
Right.
And I came here with, 3-4 pages of notes, and I got every one of them checked off. You covered everything. Who the fuck are you? I'm like, "Well, I'm Playboy 360. I'm just doing my job, man."
Right.
Anyways,
who was asking? Who was that guy?
He was a TACP guy. I don't remember his name.
Oh, okay.
I don't. My brain doesn't work like GV was saying. The other thing I liked his paper or plastic thing, but I just don't remember things. I don't know. Right. So anyways, we had 3 AC-130 gunships on that op.
Jeez.
We had 2 orbiting assigned target areas.
Mm-hmm.
The third was sent to go above them to help deconflict what they needed to do.
Okay.
We had B-1s, we had bombers hitting planned targets outside the area, caves and shit like that.
Yeah.
We had EA-6s doing comm jams, phone intercepts. We had airfax with a line of strike aircraft like taxis at an airport.
Right.
We had refuelers. I was just suggesting everything we could possibly need based on what the intel was, and they gave it all.
That's awesome.
I remember rolling in there, and it was like 4th of July, tracer fire going up in the air and just going on. And but then I don't remember much after that, except I do remember a gunship being shot at. And I do believe I remember saying it's an inherent right of self-defense. You're cleared hot.
Mm-hmm.
And they engage their targets. Later on that evening, I find out that women and children were killed. It was a wedding party, supposedly.
Oh, and all the gunfire was like celebratory?
And they were saying the gunfire was celebratory. Oh. And we were gaggled around. And I remember things were quite quiet. We were kind of having after-action huddle. I still had aircraft overhead, so I don't think it was done yet. Like, we didn't clear the aircraft away, the gunships. And I remember some guy, I describe him as some dude in a fly fishing vest with a goofy hat, came up, tapped me on the shoulder, and goes, "Playboy such and such, you need to have your aircraft move out of the area, this altitude, blah, blah, blah. We have an asset coming in." That was my face-to-face introduction to an OGA guy.
Okay.
And he disappeared just like as he appeared, he disappeared just like that.
Yeah.
Daylight came. There was already like 100+ graves dug.
Jeez.
There wasn't any evidence of brass or weapons anywhere near this hut where most of the casualties were. There were wounded and dead. But the big buzz was we shot up a wedding party. I can remember back in a time, there's the old 8 discs, floppy drives.
Yeah.
We're making, me and the ground commander, the Army guy, we're making copies of these and sending and handing stuff to our trusted source saying, I don't know what the fuck's going to happen, but if I'm at Fort Leavenworth crushing little rocks out of big rocks, here's all our evidence. Something's not right. I mean, the panic session on both of our sides are like, how the fuck did this happen? What? We were dialed in. We were dialed in really good. So anyways, we get a call from headquarters, battalion, that myself and the team and the commander, the next available aircraft back to Kandahar, unless it's friendly wounded, you guys need to get on that fucking aircraft and get back here. And it didn't sound like a friendly invitation.
Right.
So we're literally on the tailgate, flying into Kandahar. And I can remember descending to land on the tarmac. And there was a group of, obvious the battalion commander, because he was the size of a grizzly bear. Mm-hmm. And I can remember seeing him, and he had other guys with him. And it's like he knew exactly where that aircraft was going to land. And it's landing, and he's walking up. And the first thing he does, he reaches out, massive paws, and grabs our hand and goes, "You guys are heroes. Follow me. These guys got your gear." And that's the first time we were like, okay.
Yeah.
What the fuck's going on?
Right.
We were brought into his private quarters. He's got a TV with CNN blasting, wedding party, and all this filming shit. And we're like, what the fuck is this shit?
Yeah.
And that was our first introduction to the propaganda bullshit media.
Right.
They had people on the ground and, showing shit.
Mm-hmm.
It was...
that's why there's no weapons or brass or anything. They picked it all up and got it out of there.
And grave sites and all stuff like that, and the whiny snivellers you shot up, blah, blah, blah. And the aircraft crash was June 12th, 2002. Date's important for later on. And then this was, I think, July 1st was the wedding party incident. So he shuts the TV off, hands a cigar, and there's a drink there. And maybe not the cigar, but definitely a drink. And then he starts explaining what's going on. Of course, as we're engaging, completing the mission, S&R teams are flying back. They're retracting, our reconnaissance. They're hot washing everything that's going on, the video stuff and all that stuff. So we hear what happened as it was happened from the perspective of the spectators, in other words.
Okay.
On how, AAA is going off like crazy. They're shooting up at the gunship. They must have known the amount of time it takes for the gunship to actually skew around to the target, clean everything up, and they engaged.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't until then we thought, like, what the fuck? How did this happen? Did we clear on friendlies? So that was significant. Again, another kind of lockdown, but and then we moved right back into Deirau. We took over a compound there, and we started doing missions out of the compound. We owned the village. We had a drone prototype sent to us that we only had a camera out the front, a camera out the side, and it was either day or night, and we'd have to switch on which one, and we'd toss it, and we'd fly it around, our introduction to drones.
Nice.
It was quite slow. We did some missions looking for bad guys, but the way I did it was we planned every inch of the trail, the route we were going to take, the locations we were going, where the guys thought the hot spots were. I always had air on station to do it. Other than those two incidents, I never had any cast missions. We never had any fights. We did a huge. We found a big weapons cache that we blew up there. But Afghanistan was 6 months after the crash and the wedding party incident. I would say it was relatively quiet for us in the area that I was at.
Yeah,
I met a TACP guy, Sandy Santos. I don't know if you ever heard his name.
I don't think so.
I think he was a ghost that I met because I've talked to other people and they're like,
maybe that's why I don't know him.
Yeah. But he would come over from different areas and we would talk and we did a lot of Karzai came through. But then, at the same time, I was at my 10-year point of being at Alaska. And I was due an assignment because you couldn't be there more than 10 years. Colonel Wright, Cato, had messaged me and said, Greg, if you do back-to-back 3 months tours and don't come back to Wainwright until like past mid-September, I can probably get you out of this assignment. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And then I get back and early the next morning, I get a call from Cato that said, you and your wife have to come to the office, please, first thing in the morning. The earliest you can be there, the better. And I go to the office, and he basically almost on his knees apologized because I had to go down to Eielson MFF and either accept an assignment or deny my chance for retirement with 18 months left in service.
Jeez.
So I went down to MPF, and the same folks at Eielson that I met leaving. And, it was a nice introduction, a nice welcome back. But I went to the senior for assignments, and I'm like, I need to talk to somebody about that. Oh, and they wanted me to go short notice, like within 30 days.
Come on.
To go down to Fort Riley, Kansas.
What was the hurry? What was the rush?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
So I get on the phone with Chief at AFMPC, And I'm like, I need to talk to the chief, the person that makes the decision on, if I got to go, I'm going to go. But to make me leave in 30 days after the fucking shit I've been through, I got
it's
emails that
crazy.
says, I stay there longer and, you can get out of this assignment. So like, well, members don't talk directly to the chief. I'm like, you are going to let me talk to the chief. So they agreed, and I got on the phone with the chief, and I remember my first words were like, "Chief, as far as I'm concerned, you and the fucking Air Force can kiss my fucking ass." And he's like, "Sergeant," and I'm like, "Chief, no disrespect for you, but I just showed your folks here all the things that I went through, blah blah blah, and you're telling me from they're calling to talk to you. There's no way I can change this. You can't extend me, blah blah blah." Anyways, he ended up accepting my somewhat disrespectful acknowledgement. And he allowed me to stay there until the new year, enjoy the holidays with the family. And then January 3rd, 2003, I drove down with my truck and an enclosed trailer to Kansas and signed into Riley. And that's where I signed in there, just coming out of Afghanistan, and I got the worst of the worst that was there. A brigade was made a brigade NCOIC. My commander introduction was a stack of folders with. He's like, I got enough paperwork on every one of the people in your brigade to kick them out right now. Nate Rice, Shane Greppo, Chris Payne. Ace was his nickname. Hennessy. The only serious guy with Benji Garrison. There,
solid guy. Yeah, solid dude.
Yep. Timothy Officer was down there. May he rest in peace. Although he was with 2nd Brigade. Don Cindy.
Yeah, I know Don. Yep.
And I think that's about it. But all of them were like, I think Don was a staff. I was a tech. Benji was I think he was a senior airman. So it's like, these are your guys. And good luck.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
Yeah, thanks.
So I want to say it was a couple weeks afterwards. May he rest in peace. Jim Brown, Ranger Brown was there too.
Oh, okay.
Do you know James Brown?
I don't think so. I don't believe so.
Yeah. He unfortunately died at an early age, died in his sleep years later. But so Ranger Brown and I get a call from, I believe it was Chief V out of Carson. Hey, boys, I want you to come on over to Colorado Springs and have a chat. Okay. And we got pulled over to 5th Group to go into Iraq.
Oh, okay.
So that was the sense of urgency, I guess, for relocating out of Alaska.
Well, yeah, they were probably looking at that list of people who had already had the training. You're probably one of the top guys, if not the top guy, and they're like, "Yep, let's get him over here." So that it makes sense.
Because they were still 90% of the career when Iraq went off the second time. 90% of our career field was deployed.
Yeah,
and they couldn't take too much out of Korea. So and yeah, they had the opportunity to pick out of the litter of who's available. I can't imagine the senior leadership, what they were going through at that time with, the manning, the manpower, and crazy. Hats off to.
Let's stop right there and let's talk about what you mentioned before about how they were drawing down. They were like, they were getting rid of TACPs. They were doing. It's the most frustrating thing in the world because they did it then, and then now they're jumping through their. This is a perfect example of how they were jumping through their ass to try to find JTACs. Now it seems like they're doing it again. Now it seems like they're trying to draw down again, and I'm like, have they not learned anything from the past? I mean, I don't know. It's just so frustrating the way. I mean, I talk about this all the time. People are probably sick of hearing about it, but it's so cyclical that some guy has a great idea. We need to draw down this career field. All right. Oh shit. Now we're in a situation where we need JTAC. Let's build them back up again. Get ready. I don't know. Anyway, it's just a pet peeve of mine.
Well, it's always been a pet peeve of mine. I mean, I felt I was one of the guys that wherever I went, I was fighting to get training, fighting to be trained, and then fought to train the guys that work for me, take them under the wing and really push the shit out of them. They had to clean toilets, and I don't do paperwork. I remember times at Wainwright when the guys would be fucking up, and I'm like, all right, guys, Saturday morning, 5 a.m., be here. I'm like, what the fuck you mean? I ain't doing paperwork on your ass. You get here. I don't care if you go. I don't care if you show up still fucked up, smelling like bitch perfume. You show up at 5 o'clock. You don't do what I say. There's consequences.
Right.
Play hard, work hard. And like I was going on earlier, when we went out to the field, we worked our asses off. They were in there coordinating with the TAC. I sent guys to meetings in garrison, planning for exercises. They did the coordination at the TAC. I went in there and helped them, but I didn't put words in their mouth. They had to do shit, I forced them to do it. We got in all sorts of things. But when it was kind of the end of the day and I put my ball cap on, as long as you're ready at 7 a.m. to do it again, or you did your duty, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And that was during exercises when we went out on battalion training, and I often went out and did our own training exercises. And it was that mentality. And unless you fought for the opportunity, and senior leadership was so varied, even, I didn't get involved much at the chief level because we didn't have the extensive network that we ended up having. But you never knew what you could do or was allowed to do. There was times I had step packages written up for me, Airman of the Year packages written up, and then the Airman of the Year package, something happened. One of the officers got pissed off at me, and the NCOs wouldn't back me up, so they pulled my package.
Jeez.
And it was shit it was all dirty pool shit. It was like, well, if I don't back you up, then I'm going to get fucked by this other, thing, blah, blah, blah. And that's, I went back to drum with Dave Ocasio. Dave Ocasio was an impeccable NCOIC. He stood up for the guys that worked for him. But some of the other NCOs did not like the way he did things. And when they found out he was a homosexual, they set things up to use against him. And it was either either going to be an ugly fight or he just had to walk out.
Yeah.
It was nasty shit.
Yeah.
So now you're okay. We're back at the call to now we're scrambling to get people. And so I go back to so the rest is the Iraq, and then right after that a retirement. So
let's hit. I want to hear about Iraq for sure. Let's dig in.
Yeah. So while we're getting ready to go to Iraq, of course, Riley's getting ready to do it too. Mm-hmm. And but me and JB, we're going over and we're briefing with fifth group, and we're getting ready. And I remember we go over there for our smallpox. In the process, I'm introducing the guys, and then I had to leave them. Just we started getting a good relationship going, work hard, train hard, and then JB and I went over to Carson, and then they did their own thing, and they deployed out with the group there into the Iraqi war. But while we were going over some significant things, I'll try to move along a little quicker. JB and I went and got our smallpox vaccination. And it was the little fucking spear. Yeah. Everybody went through it. And but I remember JB coming to the hotel room door and knocking on it. And I had my wife and son down at the time because it was close to Valentine's Day. And anyways, he opens the door and he's like, one arm, his shot arm is sticking out like this. He's rashed like crazy. His face is like locked up, and he's a Georgia boy, and he's got an accent. He had some major symptoms, and I had a little pus. So we went back to the medic and asked, and we both had symptoms.
Was he allergic or what happened?
No, he just had the extreme side of the symptom side because it varied on the symptoms. So the symptoms just varied.
Okay.
But anyways, we went to leave out of there, and we did the big formation where I remember the command sergeant major. One of the guys I remember out of the group was Ray Garotti. But I remember the command sergeant major. We were standing in formation. He goes, "Look left and right. Half of you are probably not going to come back. If the Iraqis do what they should do, and I think at the time Turkey was shutting the door for armor coming in from the north.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't looking good,
right?
So we flew into our staging area and we started the planning session. And again, that was, an introduction to, okay, I got some background now, but there was a lot of us there. There was probably a dozen of us there, deploying in from our staging base. And then 3 different times we tried inserting. We were going up to Erbil. My group, there was 10 teams, 7 TACP guys. We were all going up to Erbil, north of the Green Line. And it one of I forget the gentleman's name, but he talked about deploying. And so we went out to the 130s and we stood on the scale with all our personal gear and we got weights. And then they calculated all our weights of everything each individual would carry, rucksacks, all that. So we stepped on the scale, they calculated the weight, and then they pointed us over to a pile of munitions and said, you guys got X amount of weight to take whatever you want over there.
Jeez.
And I was like, are you fucking real?
Right.
But I got everything I need because it's all right here.
Sure.
I got my kit. I'm good to go.
Right.
So, but anyways, twice we took off. Twice we got shut down entering Turkey airspace. And we came back. Third time we did orbits and finally flew off to another staging area, classified staging area, where we planned a new means to get up to Erbil, which was flying right through the center of Baghdad.
Jeez.
I remember I was on Bird 1. Good buddy JB. We were all staged at our aircraft waiting for, the go hour. So we're staged at our aircraft, and JB, Jim Brown, Ranger Brown, had a distinctive walk. He's a short guy, but he put his feet way out, and he bobbed up and down. So you could tell when JB was walking a long ways away. And I see him pacing, and I yell out to him because I'm just doing the rucksack flop. And he comes up, and he's wigging out. Do you believe what the fuck we're doing? We're flying around the middle of Baghdad. And I'm like, yeah. I was involved in the planning session with the other guys and blah, blah, blah. He's like, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, he's like, why are you so relaxed? I'm like, well, I'm Bird 1. Bird 1 wakes everybody up. Bird 2, they start getting their sights on. Bird 3, that's the first aircraft that's fucked.
Right. Right.
And that elevates his level of stress because he's on Bird 3.
Oh, man.
So I remember taking off, and I don't know if it was a call or whatever, or we just did that. But I remember Ray Garotti was sitting next to me on the side rails, and he turns around, puts his foot through the webbing, put his arms through the webbing, and he's just clinging on to the back of the seat. And he's basically, seating backwards, but hanging on for dear life. And then that's when we start the 50 feet off the deck, and there's puke going everywhere. Ray's sitting next to me, puking on the inside of the aircraft because he turned around. Guys are just, you're hanging on, and there's streams of puke everywhere. It was nasty. We land into Erbil, and that's when I find out Bird 3 did get shot.
How bad? Anybody get hurt?
I found out later, no casualties, no injuries.
Oh, thank God.
A lot of luck involved. One guy was sitting on an MRE box, and a 57 millimeter round went up through it and shredded the MRE box just after he got off. But they landed in Turkey, and the story I got was, at first Turkey didn't want to let him go. I think it was Incirlik. And then they said, okay, it's an emergency landing, you'll land, but, your passengers can't get off the airplane. Well, we got fluids leaking all over the place. The passengers are getting out of the aircraft. One of the last things they said, okay, your passengers can get off the aircraft, but they're going to have to leave their weapons. And I believe the conversation was, well, I'll tell you what, you bring your guys over here and you talk to all these special forces soldiers about leaving their weapons, and we'll see how that goes for you.
All right.
Anyways, we get into Erbil and we start our battle. I had 7 TACP guys. There's 10 SF teams that are in, we kind of pre-planned with my age and experience. I was going to be kind of at the headquarters element. Maintaining comms is the way it worked out. And then basically being an intermediate level to the ASOC, kind of have it, kind of be an intermediate Doom, call sign Egypt Tango. And that worked out phenomenal. I did all the pre-plans based on what the command wanted, and got all sorts of aircraft, whatever we could, and handed them to the teams. The end result of that deployment, 7 to 10 teams walked out without never firing a round from their single position.
Nice.
They were very happy. They saw a lot of shit. We had a few teams that had some incredible fights up there, but Cass really pulled through and took care of what we needed to take care of.
Right.
It was incredible. There was, we had missions. I started like a spreadsheet, and of the weighted ordnance, we had over 600 tons of ordnance dropped in our area alone. That's just us. And that's not counting the CBUs and gunpowder and stuff like that. That didn't have a weight. We had B1 showing up with 35,000 pounds of ordnance that they just, scattered across the planet. But we had one big mission planned. Several missions planned, but one big one. We had this hill that was definitely heavily fortified. We hit it a whole bunch of times. We had teams watching it and doing the, hey, if you want to surrender, come out, interpretations, signage, all sorts of stuff that we could do. And had teams reporting that after we do bombing and they'd be taking care of their wounded and KIA and whatnot, they saw people trying to run away and other people running behind them, shooting them in the back with handguns.
Jeez.
The reality of the Iraqi force was a military by force participation. At least up in the area where we at in Erbil. Yeah. We had this big mission planned, sent up a bunch of pre-plans to do it as, we decided to. And then one area got denied. One request got denied because of a no-fire area within the quadrant that we picked for a big bombing campaign.
Yeah.
Just down the hall at the headquarters unit was an OG8 setup, and they did an introduction when they set up and said, we're down the hall, guys. You don't know us. You don't need to talk to us. We will come talk to you. You never knock on our door.
Ever.
And so anyways, I just had the instinct of, well, maybe there's something this no fire area has to do with the door you can't knock on. So I knocked on it and talked to the lead dude and went through the sharing data. And he said, give me a little bit and then put your request back up. So I called Doom and just, I repeat, I want to send this. And like, we already disapproved this for no fire area. I'm like, I have reason to believe that this request should be relooked at.
Yeah.
And sure enough, the no fire area was taken away and we were able to get our pre-planned mission. So we had big team meetings. We had plans. We all agreed on what we wanted to do and so on and so forth because this was a big mission. And then we went for it. We went for the big mission. It was 72 hours of constant battle. I remember teams calling on the radio, troops in contact, we need air, we need air. And you can hear the machine gun fire in the background. I mean, it was like, something you would think only in a movie you hear that stuff. But there it was in my ear on the microphone.
Do you remember there were any other like TACPs on the ground during that time? Like, do you remember any of the other?
Seven out of the 10 teams that were under my umbrella had TACPs embedded with them.
Nice.
So. And they kind of moved around. They would come back into the headquarters, the teams would, and, but most of it was just 3 months of just being in their teams and moving and doing stuff. And I was primarily the ODB at that time, 040, Egypt Tango. So there wasn't a lot of kind of intense stuff, mission stuff for me, but it was all supporting those teams and making sure any CAS available. So a lot of those experiences from years gone by of being in that role, it worked really well. Unfortunately, during that mission, there was a rogue TACP that would just find those fights and get into them.
Mm-hmm.
And it was after we did our group meeting. This is what our plan is. This is what our own little ROE is, that sort of thing. Called in direct to Doom for troops in contact, and I knew where he was. I knew the location. At the point the headquarters element moved forward to stay in line with the battle and do meetings, the updates and stuff like that. We opted to keep me back at the headquarters building in Erbil because I had solid communications with every TACP and the other units that needed help. So that was the plan, to stay there. So they went down to have this meeting with the Allied forces and then other ODA teams. And then at the same time, we had that I call it a rogue TACP unit that made its way into the fight, getting into some intense combat, called the troops in contact direct to Doom. I don't know if the coordinates he passed I knew were not a right target or what. I don't remember how that all transpired. I think they were probably good coordinates. But for whatever reason, I contacted Doom and said, "Hey, this guy's not on our plan. Disapprove this request." And I don't know if the words were exactly, but I thought the words that came back on the radio was "Shut the fuck up, stay off the net." And shortly thereafter, an aircraft was marginal weather. An aircraft dropped below the deck, saw a mass group fit the description of what this rogue TACP called out. Put a 500-pound bomb, let one 500-pound bomb off the jet, and it landed in the middle of the group that was the headquarters company having their meeting, and it killed 120 people.
Jeez.
It never really made highlights because all the KIAs were the Allied forces, the Peshmerga.
Jeez.
There was a few guys, and then when the guys came back, I knew right away. I knew right away it was not good. I think I got a radio call, but I remember grabbing. I think I had my standby 113 or my portable next to me, and I ran to an open door at the end of the hall, and I'm holding the radio up in the air, and I'm just on guard. Hey, aircraft, this area, just dropping a bomb, abort, gave them the code, just screaming it because I knew they bombed friendlies.
Gosh.
And
were there any U.S. guys in that group?
Huh?
Were there any U.S. guys in that group that got bombed?
Yeah. It was. So what happened was the command section and key leaders came to this meeting because we were branching into this next phase, and it was still in heavy conflict. But it was, okay, regroup, let's go, let's push these guys. Because we were winning, we were kicking ass. Yeah. But this incident happened. So as they were just coming out of the meeting, the U.S. forces were generally in the center doing the meeting planning and drawing on the ground and doing that, reading the maps. And the Allied forces, the Pesh, were on the exterior side overlooking the SF leading in. As the meeting broke up, the Pesh walked away, and one of the Poe, I believe his name was, one of the Commo guys said to me, he's like, yeah, I mean, we saw it coming. The bomb landed right in the middle of the group, and we saw the impact go over us and just kill the Pesh, the Allied forces. It went right over us. I mean, they had concussions from the blast. Our leader had a small piece of shrapnel that got him in the leg. And you could, when he moved his toe up and down, you could see the muscle. It was just a burn hole, and you could see the muscle, and you could see his muscle move as he moved his foot up and down. But that was the only injuries. After that, they had us all do investigative reports. And I remember a knock on the door. I think I shut down. I just either just fell asleep or just my off button was engaged and I didn't know it. And I think I slept for 24 hours, and then a lawyer shows up wanting to talk to me. And we got into that door down the hall that nobody could go in, and there was a briefing table. And he had a stack of papers, and he put a whole bunch in a circle and one in the middle. And he introduced himself, and he said he was part of the legal team investigating this incident, but he was also a historian. He was a major. Mm-hmm. And when he read through all the reports, he himself had to come and meet me and find out who this Egypt Tango was.
Yeah.
Well, all the reports were all the different agencies, Corps, Doom, the command elements, the teams, and all this stuff. Was their version of the incident, and mine was the one in the middle. And he said, I read each one and I understood what they were saying, but until I read yours, all those reports came together in one story.
Oh, okay.
And he was
another tied them all together.
Yeah. And he was another guy who's like, who the fuck are you? What do you guys do? So it was kind of a reality check and all that stuff. But it was.
Were there any repercussions for that guy that was like coming in there like gangbusters and screwing everything up?
Not that I heard of. I've never heard of anybody talking to it until I watched Marty Klukas' report, and he referred to a time when he had to do an investigation on a bombing incident, but he lightly went over it. So I think because it was war, it was combat, it was it was what it was.
Sure.
And whether he did it wrong, I don't think so. Whether he just didn't do it the way we did, I don't know. It just, it was one of the things that was significant in my career. That was a lot of unfortunates, but oh my God, we wouldn't have made it out there unless the team was all dialed in. And I'm talking from the guy that pulls the remove before flight to the guy that puts make sure the switches are on right on the bombs on the airplanes. That was amazing on what we were able to accomplish up north, knowing there was no armor, it was all air. So,
right,
it was what it was.
Yeah.
But the other interesting thing on that was, towards the end, we get a phone call and it's like, okay, I don't know how you're going to do it. The Army doesn't want you to do it, but you need to get the fuck out of the AO because there's other things going on. You guys need to leave. So basically, you guys need to go to. At this time, there was an assault strip set up in Erbil, and we were told to go to the airfield and get with the TACP, the unit there, and literally hitchhike your way out of the country because we need you back.
Wow. So
I remember going there and getting a ride from the teams because the teams are cool. They're like, yeah, we know, it's not regular Army, it's little Army, but sure. And then so literally we go to the airfield and say, hey, I need a ride out of here. Anything, whatever you got. We didn't carry much with us because it was that.
Right.
So that was rather interesting.
Yeah. Where were you guys pulling back to, or where do they need you to go?
We went back to our staging base and then basically back to our assignments for other follow-on stuff.
Okay.
Because the war was, of Iraq, it was quick and we ended it, but it was the follow-on assignments and stuff like that. It was still continuing Afghanistan, all that stuff. We did what we needed to do. It was the rest of the Army's turn to take care of. We did travel over to Mosul, looking at things and investigating some stuff there. We set up a safe house, a base. A few of our teams did in Mosul. We monitored that area a little bit, but nothing really other than seeing the devastation of the war and shit like that.
Yeah.
So that first trip was it was quick. It was pretty intense at first, and then it was driving around. It was interesting to see ambulances that we came across that were mocked up as communication units, disguised in an ambulance. Yeah. We did see a big Scud type missile painted pretty yellow and pretty blue. Definitely saw evidence of chem suits and stuff like that. So as far as the reason for being there, definitely, we were there.
Sure.
But so then hitchhiking back to our staging base where we were initially staged, went into the building and found out it was the AC-130 gunship's crew that were staying there. And so we did the quick introduction. Oh, you guys are TACP. And then they opened up this closet door, and it was like, a liquor store.
Nice.
And I think it didn't take much, but it was quite a welcome back to that. And then I forget how I got back to. I think I got on a C5 that broke down in Lakenheath, and then at the bar there on base, I met up with a crew for a KC-10 going back to Jersey. Found out I was TACP. I had a lot of stories to share, a lot of cool shit. It was a big bonding moment. Everybody in the Air Force, and I thought that was most significant because my experience in Afghanistan and now Iraq, Northern Erbil, and realizing that, it took the whole entire Air Force to pull that off.
Right.
It took the whole entire military, all branches of service, everybody. It was a huge team effort. But so when I met those KC-10 guys and the stuff we had to tell, and how we had aircraft on. I've heard stories like somebody said in a podcast where basically they were on fuse. They knew where they were bingo, and they still kept providing missions and were planning. They could have jettisoned the aircraft, worst case scenario, but they were going to support our missions. So anyways, I went the next day to see if the C5 was going to take off as planned. The C5 was canceled, was still delayed, typical. So I had the airfield call out to the KC-10 to see if I could still thumb a ride back with them. And they're like, fuck yeah. They sent their crew bus over. I loaded up on a KC-10, and it was all one squadron of troops there, Air Force guys. It was a big party. It was pretty fucking cool. And that was my first experience of hanging with other Air Force types, non-TACP.
Right.
And it was pretty epic. It really was. I remember crossing the Eastern Seaboard, and they were letting me sit in the refueler's seat, and I crossed the Eastern Seaboard in the refueler's seat.
Oh, that's cool.
So that was a cool experience.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was that time or when I came back to Afghanistan, flying into Jersey, I got a rental car. And since I was from Connecticut, I think it was when I got back to Afghanistan, I locked my stuff up in McGuire and went up to whatever the commercial civilian airport is there, got a rental car, went back and got all my gear, to include my M4, and other types of equipment that we would carry. And then I went up to Connecticut, so crossing 3 borders, state boundaries. And then at the time, I had a cousin that was a counter-drug task force guy in the FBI, and I stopped by his house, and we did the "I'll show you yours, you show me mine" type back in the vehicle displays. And then that was returning from Afghanistan. I went home. So after Erbil went back to Riley, I was one of the first guys back. Because the armor guys were cycling in slower, and then it was immediately jumping into all the equipment, because we were set to deploy back to Iraq in September with a brigade, and it was the Bad News crew and myself fragged to do that. So when all the vehicles came back, they were literally just, everything was kind of torn apart and just thrown, scattered all over. So, none of the systems came back intact. No maintenance done, no repairs done. So we had to unclusterfuck all the equipment, all the vehicles, go through them all, put them all together, figure out the worst to the best, and then get them repaired and ready to get shipped down to a port in Texas to ship back to drive into. We were tasked to go to Aramati.
Okay.
And the same crew that I first met, Ben Garrison, Shane Greppo, Chris Payne, Kenny Ladd was there at the time, who I also knew at drum or at Benning. He was a retread. And then Hennessy, I said Garrison, and our commander, Colonel Bednarik, F-15 guy, real arrogant, asshole kind of guy, but he knew his shit. He really knew his shit. We bumped heads several times. I didn't go through a story of when I first got to Riley in interest of time, but he chewed my ass. But we went out to Smoky, and I controlled a set of A-10s that the commander said, I'm not expecting you to control aircraft for a check ride. But if the XO says, asked you and there's time, everybody else has been done, there might be a chance, but don't expect anything. Mm-hmm. Anyways, I controlled a set of A-10s, and the flight lead happened to be the squadron commander, and I literally smoked them. They were sweating. Just coming right out of Afghanistan, I had a few scenarios in my mind.
Sure.
And as they checked out, they asked, they're like, who's this? Did you by chance, were you recently in Afghanistan? I'm like, yeah. He goes, dude, we're fucking sweating right now. And my guys, the guys getting ready picked up, they're like, yeah, that's my command. That's our NCO. So anyways, Bednarik, when I got back, he chewed my ass for doing that. But he couldn't give me paperwork because the squadron commander called and said, this dude's fucking awesome, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I
don't get it. That doesn't make sense. Like, if he said you did great, why does he got trying to give you paperwork?
Yeah, he would, and that's the asshole part of that F-15 guy, the attitude. I've worked with a few F-15 guys where, man, they're arrogant sons of bitches.
Yeah. Was he just jealous, or was he like he wanted the credit, or
I don't know. Will an ALO ever admit what their issues are? I didn't go over several stories where I bumped head with ALOs and got paperwork and shit like that on stupid shit because they're few and far between. It's just part of what we did too, and but it is an example of how the non-conventional side, the guys of the big army, dealt with these issues that and then the NCOs had to support the officer, although they were full of shit and assholes. So you're in that cross. You weren't a ranger where you could stay home.
All right.
Anyways, so we got everything going, and we shipped the vehicles there. We met up with the vehicles. We did the drive all the way up into Baghdad, and then I think from Kuwait, and then into Aramati. And then from the TACP background, I told the guys, it wasn't combat. It was more peacekeeping, building up the base and keeping an eye on all the weapons caches that were scattered. There was hundreds of them scattered around Iraq that were remote, that we didn't have people staying by. So we had to do flights and stuff, and they were assigned to each of our region. So anyways, I told the guys that because I was the NCOIC, that we're doing 24/7 ops in the TAC, and everybody will they'll work with their Army staff, and they'll do pre-planned missions for every one of their shifts. We had 6-hour shifts, and I did the midnight to 6 a.m. because more often I would task, a couple, 2 guys to go on a patrol or a specific mission with one of the units there. So I was the fill-in guy. I would go whenever, the schedule didn't accommodate. I sent them down range. Don Cindy, Nate Rice, and those guys. Mm-hmm. Anyways, I forced them to do that. They didn't like it. Nobody else was doing it. We weren't in combat. What are we going to do? But anyways, we ended up getting some great results because, there was a curfew, so nobody should be on the road. So when we saw somebody on the road, we had at times aircraft or the intel to pick them up. We had the Q-36 radar to pick up mortars and shit like that.
Yeah.
and it was being active with the Army and doing our job.
Right.
So, but one particular night, it was actually two particular things, and then I'll move on from there. We had a cache site that I was looking at. I think the crew was out on a mission, so I covered theirs. And I sent a set of F-16s out on an eastern cache site near the Syrian border, and there was people in the fence line. And it's like, okay, supposedly signage and everything was there. You can't be in here. You're at your own risk. The commander, we were approved, whatever it was, type 3 controls where we didn't need to see it. We could clear an aircraft hot there. But the command element at the time decided, no, we need to 100% confirm that they're not contractors or anything like that. So I spent the next 24 hours going through the Rolodex, all the agencies, confirming if anybody was to be out in these cache sites in our AO, would they be there? And the Army guys really picked up on doing this too. So we went through that. And I don't know if it was the next day or a couple of days later, but again, had a set of F-16s looking at, there's people in there. We've confirmed nobody's in there. We did a low pass. They didn't do anything. We dropped a bomb. Don Cindy and I think Nate Rice went in there to do BDA with an Army team. And it was a couple thugs stealing rocks for their quarry business up the road.
Oh.
But I remember it like it was just minutes ago. But I remember doing the 9 line. I remember briefing up the pilots. I remember getting the intel back from them, confirming they were there, going through hey, we got people there. Are we go? Because as we know, the Army is the one that tells us we can release ordnance. We just passed the term. And I always used my left hand on the mic when I was doing that type of control. So my right hand was doing the log. And as I was getting ready to say our term, my hand just starts shaking. I grabbed the mic with the other hand, cleared hot, and they engaged the target. To this day, I remember it. It was like my hand uncontrollably shaking, and I just
you don't know what it was about. You don't know why.
I don't know what it was about, but it was Afghanistan and Iraq and things like that taught me about instincts.
Yeah,
on how well-oiled machine as we became, and the instincts we picked up, and especially working with guys. I'm sure you've seen it, Rangers and the SF. You get so good at being good. It's instinctive. It's not muscle memory,
Right.
And you just, and even to this day, I recognize things, and I know, and I teach my young kids that I have about where things happen for a reason and end up showing it. But they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. There were signs. They weren't insurgents, but they're not stealing rocks anymore.
Right.
But another issue, late at night, we got a mortar attack. Anyways, just prior to this, so we got such a reputation, our call sign was Sandhogs, that flights that were tasked to do like the dam security checks. So these are A-10s, anything that flew in the Iraqi airspace for us, for the whole theater. They'd have these pre-frag missions that they would do without talking to TACPs. And when they completed those, almost every day and night, we would have aircraft just checking in on our frequency and saying, hey, Sandhog, we're done with our frag mission. You guys are usually active. You got anything you want us to check? Sure.
Yeah.
So it was really cool. And from what I understood later, we were like one of the only sites doing that. Because everybody was post-war. Nobody was they would get air for their missions that they were going out, but they didn't man the talk. They were, it was after combat duty. It's peacekeeping. We don't do fucking, the attitude, the pride, the fatigue, was intense. But for some reason, it was just, this is what we're going to do. We're going to hear and we're going to do it. But one particular night, we got a mortar launch. Q-36 picked up a location. I just happened to have aircraft checking in. We found the vehicle moving away, and then it got on the highway heading west toward Baghdad. Well, we were running out of fuel, bingo, just tracking this guy, and then realized we were starting to go not only outside our line of sight, but outside our area of responsibility. Mm-hmm. So I had the Army guys like going through a phone book. Who's the next Army unit forward? Mm-hmm. Get their talk. Tell them to get their TACP up. They need to pull up their radios. They need to stay in contact. So it was 120 kilometers, 60 miles to Baghdad from where we were at. And I had the Army talk. And we were a skeleton crew at night because there wasn't a lot going on, the typical. But I had these guys figuring out which unit was along the highway because we didn't know what these guys were doing, but it was the only vehicle moving from the spot where Q-36 picked it up. And with the curfew, these have to be the guys. We are following them. So anyways, long story short, after literally getting on the talk, when they got me the number, I would call the TAC NCO and say, your TACP's there? Yeah, they're sleeping. Fucking get them up. Tell them, they need to get on. So we ended up doing we maintained contact with the aircraft, and then the ending aircraft when they got to Baghdad was a gunship. And sure enough, they tracked it pulling into a house in a subdivision in Baghdad, called the QRF guys. QRF raided, vehicle hot, guys just laid down, and all the evidence they needed on catching one of the insurgent teams that there. Because what they were doing, awesome. They were training guys up in Syria, and they would move them to cells and advance them into Baghdad, and they would have to do things. This is what Intel was telling us. And they would have tasks to fuck with the U.S. forces and everything. And if they survive, they would advance into Baghdad, and they get farmed out to the terrorism world and do a whole bunch of shit. I mean, that's what we were fighting there. So that was like I felt like a peacock, quite a proud, guy for accomplishing that, making that happen.
I mean, because of your tenacity, that you were able to take those guys out so they couldn't do it to somebody else. You know
exactly.
What I mean? That was good.
And we not only that, we proved what Intel was telling us, because the team is so firmly oiled at this point. So that was a pretty good feeling. Although that trip was probably my most stressed trip. I wasn't tasking subordinates to do missions and going in harm's way and things like that. Don Cindy and Nate Rice were out on a mission one time, and they had an IED go off, and they got real lucky. Nate was driving, and I think one thing that saved him was the IED went off, and there was a crowd of people around who took most of the blast. They had a piece of shrapnel in the spare tire just above Don's head. He was in the passenger seat. Don said after the blast went off, he realized he was sitting in the lap of Nate, who was driving. There was a concern of a separated retina for him. So there was still a lot of serious shit going on, but it was all that nasty fucking terrorist IED shit and stuff like that. So because we were doing, we were very active. We got one of the 4 rover kits. Prototype rover kits that were going along. So that could take you from Falcon View, 1 to 250 maps down to Falcon View. And oddly, after I got out, the Google Earth stuff was showing up. It was interesting. But so we got one of the rover kits, and we were training with that. I remember Senior Master Sergeant Steve Lucas, who, again, I mentioned was a young guy in Fort Drum. He was bringing that stuff around with an entourage. So that was pretty cool. We got 1 of 4 because we were doing so well there. And then, that was pretty much Iraq, the second trip. That was a 9-month tour. That was a long stint. And every day we were doing missions.
Yeah.
So we were constantly active, and these were the same guys that were just getting ready to get kicked out. And they were just some of them stayed in. Nate Rice is still kicking ass. Nate well, and and they're it was a really good. We got back, and another group came in to replace us, and the Marines took over our Ramadi. Junction City is what we called the camp. And then I think I had 120 days leave saved up from being deployed so much. The window of opportunity stayed open, and I could retire. At the time, I was really hoping it could save my personal life with my wife and the relationship that was dwindling away. So I got out. I retired, and hindsight being what it is, we got divorced in 2009. Hindsight's always what it is. I wish I would have stayed in and done more, but the path I was on, who knows how long it would have lasted. We started losing a lot of people there, not only in training but combat and stuff like that. It was just more and more intense. So. But my method was always, really beat up the Army for, even with the SF guys, working that TACP system, getting the intel down, and doing the best plan for CAS. I never really kicked doors in. It wasn't something that was my skill set. My skill set was, figuring out what the plan is, all the worst case scenarios that could happen, and when would be the best time for CAS.
Which is exactly what you're supposed to do. That's precisely your job.
Yeah, I mean, we did. I remember when we were in Afghanistan, we did a mission walking out of our compound, and I went with them, and I just felt way out of place. I mean, I didn't feel out of place to where I shouldn't be there, but I was the tail end of the formation. I wasn't the guy that was going to go in first. We did engineer tape, mock buildings and stuff like that. And I played the bad guy hiding behind the wall and stuff like that as they did their movement drills and stuff like that. We did entries and stuff like that for training, but I was always involved with that. But I think the teams knew that when it came down to it, I'm the guy that needs to know what you're doing. So if shit hit the fan, I can be support. I can help where I need to. Right. I think listening to other podcasts, I think it was Bo Cook that said, it was really about how many people we allowed to go home.
Yeah, that's right.
And in all the podcasts, I think he was the one that said that. And I could reach through the screen and hug him, because that's been my feeling for many, many years, is the number of people that came home.
Right.
Because of when we did it right.
Well, I just felt like I've always felt that's the TACP's job. I mean, you fall in on guys that already know how to kick down doors and shoot and do all this other stuff. You have a specific reason. Yeah, you should know kind of how to do that stuff. Maybe even you're really good at it. But when it comes down to it, they need you to do your job, and your job is to protect them when they can't protect themselves. And that's the bottom line, And
we need to get in the mix. We need to know what to do. And how many stories have I heard on your podcast and then been part of in training and where you end up taking over the show and coordinating everything on the ground as it's going, because you're the one that has the big picture and puts it together. And you don't have the rank on your collar, you got it on the sleeves. But when my notice was, with the things I noticed is working with the regular Army, as they started recognizing and respecting our capabilities, it wasn't about making us do things. It was the teamwork that worked out well.
Right.
And it was the guys that, it just, and I enjoyed that part. And me
too. Yeah. Once you proved that you were an asset and not a liability, it was all good from there. Yeah. I mean, you were one of the team at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we were all prepared to do what we needed to do. Anyways, so I retired. It was a skeleton crew. The guys gave me a pretty impressive retirement ceremony there at Milford State Park. It's pretty much where I lived. I had a 31-foot camper that I strolled down there, and I lived there while I was there. They did a good retirement ceremony for me. I got a nice shadow box, a plaque, and then I stiff-armed the community. Pretty much ignored the TACP life, moved back to Fairbanks, and tried to be a husband and a father. My son was just getting out of 8th grade, starting high school at Lathrop High there. And I was just totally focused on them.
Sure.
Retirement was quick. I stiff-armed everybody. It was more just because I had to focus on family. And for me, it was good. It was healthier. I think I was old enough, mature enough, didn't get involved as much as I heard. So, I fought hard to keep the family alive together. There was one Veterans Day where a Troyette came over and we were partying pretty hard. And I ended up passing out. And you don't do that around, TACP's period. But
right.
A permanent marker, flowers and stuff on my face, little tattoos. And, okay, funny, you got me. So I cleaned them up. But what I didn't realize was on my back was a set of testicles. And I love Dick written across the top.
You did. How long did you go with that on your back?
I want to say it was almost a week before I realized. Because my wife was cool, she grew up with knowing TACPs, and she was a wild one herself. So she played along and until I found it or something. I forget what, but awesome. His day will come. I'll get him back one day.
Yeah.
It didn't go so well. We ended up divorcing, and then I tried the rock star thing. My son had my grandson Kale at an early age, and I realized how much I wanted kids. And then I divorced, tried rock star. I didn't like that because it was too wild. I had my own business. I was doing pretty well financially, but I realized I wanted more kids. And working with the Yukon Quest again, I met a lady down in Whitehorse that sold me on a opportunity for a family, and so I shut everything down and went down to Whitehorse, and that's when I immigrated to Canada. 2 years, so 5 years into a common law relationship, we just had our second son. She changed her mind on a long-term family thing, and I've been a single parent ever since 2016.
Oh my gosh.
So living down there, beautiful place, but very different culture. Just recently, July 1st, I took the oath for becoming a Canadian citizen, and then also started my plan to relocate up here. But anyways, so initially it sounded like she was, at least communicating on the potential of sharing the school year up here. And then she served me with papers, and I've been in a battle since the beginning of the year. Trying to even just have a scheduled time with my kids. But I knew the move was right coming up here. Financially, it's a disaster down there. It's a different culture. It's a lot of different things. But now I'm in Palmer. I'm here. I reconnected with the TACP guys down there briefly when they did their change of command. Nate was up here, and I plan to get more involved with them there. And then also spurred that it's time to get with JD and talk for 5 hours now on because I've watched just about every one. Steve Call, who I got the book, and the guys there. It's incredible. It's incredible. Thank you for doing this.
It's my pleasure. I love doing it.
Yeah.
I love hearing these stories. They're great. So
the one kind of significant thing I've done in the civilian world, I got involved with the search and rescue side of Canadian Air Force. Kind of like our Civil Air Patrol, they have CASERA, Civil Air Search and Rescue Association, a volunteer program. So I got approved by the Canadian Air Force right off to become their training officer in Yukon.
Wow.
And so I started trying to get training, which was it was interesting. But when I met the military side of the search and rescue, they recognized my TACP background and immediately would get me involved with so much stuff. They created a slot in their assistant search master course at their Coast Guard Academy in Nova Scotia, and basically paid for everything. I went there, and I did that to help me twist my brain from TACP to search and rescue. Did a lot of great things with them, all volunteer, and to include became a zone commander for our Yukon office. So that was a feel-good thing.
Awesome.
Really feel good. I took a couple courses in that Canada had, the incident command structure, ICS 100, 200. I had a hard time because a lot of people that were there going through it didn't have near the experience that, like we do. I sat on my hands and bit my tongue trying not to get involved, let them do it. Finally got, all right, guys, you need to do this, and just started doing like we do. And, but never really had a real good job because I always wanted to be a dad that had the time with his kids, even though the separation and all.
Yeah.
So financially, it's been challenging doing that as a single parent, and Canada is insanely expensive. So just day by day. And then the last thing I did is like 2014 or so, I started the retiree team for the Memorial Day run, the 24-hour challenge. I started a retiree team, which basically I connected guys from all over the globe that weren't at TACP shops or nearby. And we did like donations and stuff like that, supporting the community. So, so I'm slowly getting back into the TACP crowd, get involved now that it's cheaper to travel. I want to look at going to some of the reunions that they've been coming up with. And like to get down to a competition to see how those go, like you had made reference to earlier, to see what they're doing these days.
See the differences and how much has changed since we were there. Yeah, that would be cool to see.
I did have a chance several years back when I was doing a search and rescue exercise in northeastern Canada. I went down to Drum, and I met up with Dwayne Speece and John McCabe, Vic Ferrari, and then we went to the Drum location, the new building there, and I happened to meet one of the young guys at the time, and we saw the 3D simulator and stuff like that. But one of the guys I was talking to, he was like, I'm not sure I'm going to stay in because, they just don't want to pay you, for doing these extra duties like, becoming a JTAC and things like that. And I just wanted to slap the guy, But this was years ago. And he was young. Magdish was the senior there. Tristan, I worked with him before, but it was
do they not get they don't get the JTAC pay anymore?
Well, again, this was years ago, and it may not have been JTAC but basically they get a lot. They got a lot of money. They got a lot of sign-in bonuses and all that. But this guy was still talking about, he just wants to get paid for what he's doing. He doesn't feel, it was just one of those guys I ran into that was in it for the money, not the, the things.
I never heard anybody join the military for the money. I mean, that's never been a thing,
Another
college, maybe, some, other reasons, but never. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't pay that much.
Another cool, interesting experience was back and forth doing trips between Whitehorse and my move here, and I'm still doing them to see my kids and whatever. I ran into this couple military dudes in Haines Junction. They were filling up the gas there at the intersection. And I just happened to pull in going back to Whitehorse. Anyways, they were a couple of guys just getting out, retiring from JBER, Air Force guys. And later on, I saw that they were pulling also a U-Haul trailer, and the trailer hub came loose, and they were having some issues. So I stopped again, seeing if they needed help, and then told them I'm a retired TACP. We exchanged numbers. If you guys need help, I said, if you guys need help, reach out. I'll do what I can. Well, they sent me a text back and said, yeah, man, it was cool that, we found out you were TACP. When we first started, we tried to go the special ops world, but we weren't cut out for that. But they sent quite a nice message on, man, it's incredible what you guys do. And, they obviously heard about the history and how, what it was before. But so that was just two guys on the side of the road that knew of the career field, and then bumped.
And that's kind of one of the reasons I do this, is to get the word out. I mean, not a lot of people know about TACPs, and they just put out that documentary. Have you seen that yet on YouTube?
Warheads,
the one that Black Rifle put out.
The Warheads to What's Foreheads.
That? Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah.
So the word's getting out. I like the fact that people are starting to know about TACPs, especially now with these kids coming in now are just like, such head and shoulders above where we were. They kind of get it all figured out, and they've, they're really doing good things with these guys. So it's really nice to see.
There was one guy, maybe he'd be interesting to talk to, John Wade Stewart. When I was working in Canada, this guy was traveling up, him and his wife Peggy from Oklahoma. They had a truck camper slide in, and a year ago they wanted to make this trip, but he had a stroke. John had a stroke, so they put it off. So anyways, they're driving up through Whitehorse, had problems with their truck, and just happened to be at the service place that I was selling cars and the service advisor at the time for. I come late in the morning. He's sitting in front of my desk, and we start chatting, finding out he's on this trip, just had a stroke. He was in the military, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah? What'd you do? Well, started out, I was in, this job, we did communications. I'm like, oh, really? Yeah. I kind of did communications. What was it like? And it was in Vietnam. They were just trying this thing out. He said, yeah, they're trying out new talking airplanes to guide them onto targets. And I'm like, you mean TACP? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, dude.
No way, man.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So he was like this group of 12 guys that got pulled out of Korea and went into Nam to try to, figure out how they're going to do. John Wade Stewart, he's on. So I reached out to the association because he was going up to Fairbanks and tried to set up meeting guys up there, but the guys were, out either deployed or something like that. So the association sent me a TACP flag, a coin, and a lifetime membership, and some of the swag stuff here. So when he got back through Whitehorse, I gave him a little presentation, and it kind of brought him to tears. But after awesome. TACP stuff, he worked with OGA folks, Presidential Comm, Secret Service, and things like that, doing communication. So it was really interesting talking to him, and there's this wow. great grandfather of our TACP world
no doubt.
Sitting right in front of me after he had a delay from a stroke for a year.
It's amazing. I'd love to talk to him. I mean, it's just that, like that's another one of those coincidences that is just unbelievable, but happens all the time. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, it was. So yeah, that's me, dude. And by the way,
I got you. Yep.
you got yours?
Oh, you're doing a coin check somewhere out of there. Yeah, right here. No, I don't have it. I do. Matter of fact, an arm's length away, I have a whole book of coins that I have put together, but no, I don't have that. You got me on that one.
Yeah.
I owe you a drink next time I see you.
Yeah, exactly. No, and it's always good to. Yeah, I'll be up there and we'll connect. So I always carry mine. There's some things I don't let go of. Anyways, I think that covers it.
Okay. Well, dude, this was awesome. I mean, it was worth every minute. I mean, I know we went a little long, probably the longest one I've ever done, but I mean, it didn't seem that long. You know what I mean? It was really great, and I can't thank you enough for finally deciding to share. I mean, I know it was kind of, you were thinking about it, and I'm glad you finally made the decision, because I wish more guys would be. These stories are so important, and really, I just want to get them caught on tape, so they can be shown later on down the line. Yeah. So anyway, again, thanks a lot for coming on.
Well, I thank you, and it really was healthy for me to finally get out and share this stuff and open up to any opportunity that's there. So, but if you want to recap stuff, reach out to me. I'll think of some names. I'm hoping that some of the guys, like I mentioned, those regular Army guys, the tank fighters and stuff like that, some of the guys that got out because the bullshit was so thick, I hope some of them reach out to you, because I think it's an important part of our story, and with
100%.
what I've seen you doing and where it's going, who knows? But there's a lot of great people out there for sure.
I agree. And feel free to give my information to them. Tell them, give my email, my number, whatever it is. Let them get a hold of me. Sometimes people wait for an invitation to come on here, but I don't have everybody's info. I can't. I don't know what I don't know. So if people want to reach out to me, feel free. I mean, I'll have you on anytime. So yeah, please. If you have any leads on anybody, or anybody offhand that wants to come on, they're more than welcome, for sure.
I'll send a message out to John Wade, because I think he'd have an interesting background for you. Because again, listening to almost every one of your podcasts that the videos you put up, they all have interesting stories, and I think there's a lot more depth available to you, and it's up to them. So thank you again. I got your number. We'll be in touch. You're coming down. Give me a call.
All right, man. Well, thanks a lot. Thanks again. I appreciate it.